Chapter 588 Legendary Tier Toxin Immunity. News of the Cerulean Planet. Zhou Zhou looked at the talent skill of the Death Curse Goo Poison and nodded slightly. This skill was not so useless from the number of times it could be used. Then, he looked at the other awakened abilities. Race Talent Name, Legendary Tier Toxin Immunity, Talent Level, Legendary Tier Advanced Grade, Talent Description. As a member of the 10,000 Goo race, you are naturally immune to toxins below the legendary tier. This race talent was not bad. On the high continent, there were many plants and animals with toxin properties because of its vast area. With this talent, he would at least not be afraid of toxins below the god tier in the future. As for the other three awakened abilities, the 10,000 Goo Holy Scripture, Book 1, was the exclusive secret manual of the 10,000 Goo King race. It recorded all kinds of poison goo, goo control techniques, and some common sense and profound knowledge when handling the goo. It could be said to be an encyclopedia of Goo Dao knowledge. However, the Goo Dao encyclopedia recorded in it was considered profound among the 10,000 Goo King race, but it was ordinary in the eyes of the 10,000 Goo Emperor race and even the 10,000 Goo God race. As for the subsequent content, only when the 10,000 Goo King body advanced to the 10,000 Goo Emperor body would it awaken the 10,000 Goo Holy Scripture, Book 2. Only when the 10,000 Goo Emperor body advanced to the 10,000 Goo Divine body would it awaken the 10,000 Goo Holy Scripture, Book 3. The third volume would be the time when the 10,000 Goo Holy Scripture was completely unsealed. The 10,000 Goo Divine body is too far away from me. I can give the 10,000 Goo Emperor body a try. Zhou Zhou thought. As for the general knowledge and secrets of the 10,000 Goo royal family, there was naturally no need to mention them. At this moment, his body suddenly trembled, and he felt that his bloodline seemed to have changed slightly. Zhou Zhou's expression changed slightly when he came back to his senses. What happened? Then, he heaved a sigh of relief. This was because he realized that his chaos human bloodline had optimized the original spirit talent of the original spirit race. He examined it. After being optimized by the chaos human bloodline, in future, he could choose not to send the small world in his body into the myriad worlds and become one of them if he died. Instead, he chose to continue storing it in his corpse and continue the operation of the world in his body. Zhou Zhou was a little confused. What's the use of this? He thought for a while but had no clue, so he stopped thinking about it. After that, he thought for a moment and realized that there was nothing else. He stood up and left the intermediate grade Lord's Paradise to come to the Lord's shop. When he arrived, he realized that Zhou Qingmin had been waiting for a long time. He was sitting in front of the television, holding the controller and looking forward to it. His eyes lit up when he saw Zhou Zhou. You're finally here. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Zhou Qingmin stood up with a smile and pulled Zhou Zhou to sit on the small horse Zap beside him. Then, he did not hand him the controller immediately. Instead, he placed a small table beside their horse Zap. There were all kinds of snacks on the small table. Spicy slices, marshmallows, crispy palm, rice crackers. Zhou Zhou looked at the snacks with a strange expression. Little old man, you've exposed your age. He didn't think too much about it and casually asked. What game are you playing today? Take your pick. Zhou Qingmin said with a smile. Then, he took out a large number of gaming cards from the cabinet under the television. Ninja Turtle Series, Squirrel Combat Series, Ninja Cat, Green Army, Mushroom Top, Ice Crack. All kinds of classic small games were inside. Where did you get these game cards? Zhou Zhou was a little surprised to see so many game cards. I went to the Cerulean planet to get it. Zhou Qingmin said casually. Then, he suddenly reacted and immediately widened his eyes and shut his mouth. Zhou Zhou looked shocked. Cerulean planet. You've been to the Cerulean planet? He immediately stood up excitedly. Even though the cerulean planet was not Earth, he had also stayed on this cerulean planet that was very similar to Earth for many years. He still had some feelings for it. Therefore, he really wanted to know how the cerulean planet was doing. Why are you excited? Why are you excited? Sit down, let's continue playing the game. Zhou Qingmin wanted to bluff his way through. However, Zhou Zhou was not so easy to fool. You're back on the cerulean planet. How's the cerulean planet doing now? Can you bring me back to the cerulean planet with you? Can we still return to the cerulean planet in the future? Zhou Zhou asked one after another. A look of helplessness flashed across Zhou Chengmin's face. Who should I ask if you ask me? He said. You must know something. Zhou Zhou was not sure if what he said was true, but he looked very certain on the surface. I don't know. You do. I really don't know. Zhou Zhou, he looked at him and thought for a moment. He gritted his teeth and said. If you tell me about the cerulean planet, I'll play games with you for the next 3 days. Zhou Chengmin's eyes lit up slightly. Then, he pretended to be helpless. I really don't know. 5 days. No matter how much you ask, I don't know. Why would I lie to you? 10 days. 14 days. 2 weeks. Zhou Qingmin suddenly said. Deal. Joy appeared on Zhou Zhou's face. With his current physical strength, it was not a problem for him not to sleep for the rest of his life. The reason why he still maintained his habit of sleeping every day was because this Bodis habit was difficult to change. In addition, there was the scarlet fog at night, so it was not easy for him to go out and fight. Since he could not do anything, he naturally followed his habits and went to sleep. Now that he could obtain such important information at such an insignificant price, he was naturally very happy. Seeing this, Zhou Qingmin sighed and said, actually, you don't have to miss your hometown too much. As long as you stay alive, you will have a chance to return in the future. Then how's the situation on the cerulean planet now? Zhou Zhou asked. The cerulean planet is currently in a state of time standstill. There are also some old people and children. These old people and children were not chosen to become lords because they did not have the conditions to participate in the Lord of all Races contest. Currently, they're in a time standstill like the cerulean planet. They'll be fine. Zhou Qingmin hesitated for a moment before saying. There will be a chance to return to the cerulean planet in the future. What kind of opportunity? Zhou Zhou nodded and asked curiously. I don't know about that either. I just know that you have a chance to return to the cerulean planet. As for what opportunity it is, you have to ask the Supreme Will. Zhou Qingmin said. Zhou Zhou did not hesitate and asked the Supreme Will, which did not reply. The Supreme Will didn't reply to me. Zhou Zhou said helplessly. I can tell you that there's something fishy about the future. Zhou Qingmin pursed his lips. Zhou Zhou scratched his head helplessly. How do you know these things? Zhou Zhou thought for a moment and asked again. I'm a companion life form of the mythical tier, the only Lord Talent after all. I'm also a worker under the Supreme Will. Isn't it normal for me to know some inside information? Zhou Qingmin said calmly. Zhou Zhou was speechless and envious. What an insider. Chapter 589 Three Goods, is there anything else you can tell me? Zhou Zhou asked again. That's it, that's it. I'm going to be punished just by telling you this. Don't think I'll tell you more. Zhou Qingmin shook his head firmly. Zhou Zhou could not help but ask a few more times. However, seeing that the other party was really tight-lipped and could not get any information, he had no choice but to give up asking. He sat down, picked up the controller, and began to play games with Zhou Qingmin. The next morning, Zhou Zhou looked at the words, clear, displayed on the television in front of him and smiled. Then, he looked at Zhou Qingmin. Old Zhou. Do you have any good goods today? He asked expectantly. This depends on the mood of the supreme will. But there should be some, right? Zhou Qingmin coughed twice. Then, he stood up and walked to the counter. He took out 3 silver boxes and placed them on the table. Then, he opened them one by one. To Zhou Zhou's surprise, there was a cultivation importation jade slip in all 3 boxes. He naturally knew about this. His Chaos Origin Manual came from a cultivation importation jade slip given to him by Qi Xiantian. Don't tell me these 3 goods all come from Qi Xiantian. Zhou Zhou guessed in his heart. Then, he looked at them one by one. In the end, he was a little surprised that these 3 cultivation imparting jade slips were really from Qi Xiantian. The first cultivation importation jade slip recorded Qi Xuanqian's cultivation technique, the Epic Tier Advanced Grade's Myriad Sword Immortal Scripture. The third cultivation imparting jade slip recorded Qi Xuanqian's second strongest sword array, the Epic Tier Advanced Grade Great 5 Elements Sword Array. Zhou Zhou's eyes lit up as he looked at the 3 cultivation importation jade slips. Even though they were all only Epic Tier goods, he did not underestimate these 3 goods. One had to know that Qi Xiantian had relied on these 3 goods to kill a true immortal tier elementary grade existence as an epic tier advanced grade. Even though Qi Xuanqian's heavenly sword immortal body played an important role, it could not erase the effects of the content recorded in the 3 cultivation importation jade slips. And most importantly, he saw that at the end of the 3 goods, it was marked that these 3 goods could be used by others. Which meant he could completely use these 3 goods to create another sword god. How many mist cores do these 3 goods cost? Zhou Zhou thought for a moment and asked. The strength imparting jade slip of the Sword Immortal Manual is worth 1000 epic tier mist cores and 1000 epic tier territory tokens. The strength imparting jade slip of the Myriad Sword Immortal Formation is worth 300 epic tier mist cores and 300 epic tier territory tokens. The Great 5 Elements Sword Array's strength imparting jade slip is worth 100 epic tier mist cores and 100 epic tier territory tokens. Zhou Qingmin said. Why is it so expensive? Zhou Zhou was shocked. This price was even more expensive than some legendary tier items. Zhou Qingmin smiled and did not say anything. Zhou Zhou looked at him twice and shifted his gaze guiltily. It seemed that Zhou Qingmin also knew the true value of these 3 goods. He took out 280 legendary tier mist cores and handed them to the other party without saying anything else. This small amount of money was naturally nothing to him, who had just obtained more than 10,000 legendary tier mist cores. Then, Zhou Zhou did not stay any longer. After leaving, he sent someone to call Qi Xiantian over. Qi Xiantian came over. Greetings, Your Majesty. Qi Xiantian carried the 5-colored immortal sword on his back and said respectfully to Zhou Zhou. Zhou Zhou nodded and handed the 3 goods he had just bought to the other party. Qi Xiantian was shocked when he saw the 3 goods. The content recorded in these 3 cultivation importation jade slips could be considered a sect-guarding cultivation technique even in their Myriad Sword Immortal sect. This was because even though they were epic tier cultivation techniques and sword arrays on the surface, they were in fact, the higher level corresponding secret manuals and sword formations of the Immortal Technique Pavilion of the Myriad Sword Immortal sect. The Myriad Sword Immortal sect had never easily taught an immortal art inheritance of this level to outsiders. Even he, who was peerlessly talented, was bestowed with such an immortal technique after cultivating in the Myriad Sword Immortal sect for many years and making many contributions. How did His Majesty obtain it? Don't care where they come from. Don't worry. They're definitely innocent. Zhou Zhou glanced at Qi Xiantian and guessed what he was thinking. After casually explaining, he asked, after this king obtained them, I remembered that you know how to use them the best in our kingdom. That's why I asked you to come. I want to ask you. Who do you think is most suitable to cultivate these 3 cultivation techniques in our kingdom? Qi Xiantian fell into deep thought. I think that other than Xiao Xian, there is definitely no one else with the highest cultivation aptitude in our kingdom who is qualified to cultivate the 3 cultivation techniques and sword formation. He said seriously. Zhou Zhou nodded. Qi Zuanshan's words were exactly what he wanted. Xiao Xian was a talent with the potential of a true god-tier advanced grade. Later on, after being enhanced by the Sun-Moon Star Sword, his aptitude jumped to the Master God-tier advanced grade and reached the limit of the world. According to the immortal world, Xiao Xian's aptitude had already reached the Saint tier. In addition, there was a comprehensive martial arts and immortal Dao talent like the immortal martial sacred body among his 5 great talents. Qi Xiantian was definitely right. There are follow-ups to these 3 cultivation techniques in the Myriad Sword Immortal Sect, right? Zhou Zhou suddenly asked. Yes. Can you still contact your sect now? What do you think of your sect? Especially in terms of nurturing disciples. Qi Xiantian knew what Zhou Zhou meant. His expression changed and he said solemnly, I have a special voice transmission talisman that can contact the sect. In addition, the Myriad Sword Immortal Sect from is one of the top righteous immortal sects in the entire immortal world. It's definitely not inferior to the other sects in terms of nurturing disciples. Zhou Zhou nodded. I should have a chance to go to your immortal world in the future, right? Of course. Qi Xiantian said seriously, Your Majesty, the territory of the lords of all races is definitely not limited to just one high continent. According to the divination master in my sect, the high continent will be at most a main battlefield in the future, but the other realms will also be very important battlefields in the future. The myriad worlds. No world can escape. This is also one of the reasons why I came out to train and am willing to become His Majesty's subordinate. Zhou Zhou nodded thoughtfully. Would the other realms also become the battlefield of the lords? Then he had to prepare early. You will be in charge of teaching Xiao Xian in the future. I won't mistreat you in terms of military merits. If there's a chance in the future, let's see if I can introduce Xiao Xian to your Myriad Sword Immortal Sect through your connections. Zhou Zhou thought for a moment and said. Yes, Your Majesty. Qi Xiantian immediately accepted the order. Zhou Zhou nodded. Then, Qi Xiantian left after chatting for a while. Seeing this, Zhou Zhou was about to walk out of his residence and go to the gate of summoning to summon the subjects when Atli suddenly came over and said that Zheng Yuanqi wanted to see him. Zhou Zhou did not think too much about it and asked Zheng Yuanqi to come over. Chapter 590 New Profession, Demon Hunter. Your Majesty. What a joyous occasion. Zheng Yuanqi said happily as soon as he arrived. What joyous occasion. Zhou Zhou was a little surprised. A large group of refugees who wanted to join the Blazing Sun Kingdom arrived outside the city gate just now. I saw their numbers. It's about 5 million. Most importantly, more than 70% of them are female refugees. Zheng Yuanqi said excitedly. Zhou Zhou gasped slightly. Good God! There were a total of 5 million refugees. Moreover, more than 70% of them were female refugees. This was too exaggerated. Was beauty really so important? Zhou Zhou was a little confused. However, this was a good thing. And it was foreseeable. Then there would definitely be more and more refugees coming to join the Blazing Sun Kingdom in the future, since it was only the second day after the beautifying effect spread and the number of refugees who came had increased from 1 million to 5 million. Treat them well. Let's strive to make these refugees subjects of the Blazing Sun Kingdom in the smoothest and fastest way. And from today onwards, send troops to the path where the refugees have to pass and arrange for sentries and protective measures. Try not to let anything happen to them while maintaining order among them. Let them feel the care and concern our Blazing Sun Kingdom gives them before they become subjects of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Your Majesty is wise. Jing Yuanqi said with a smile. Actually, he had also thought of this. Originally, he wanted to mention it too, but since His Majesty had thought of it, he naturally would not do such a stupid thing to compete for glory with His Majesty. I'll leave the matter of accepting subjects to you in the future. Zhou Zhou said seriously. I will do my best. Jing Yuanqi said solemnly. Zhou Zhou nodded. After that, the two of them chatted for a while before Jing Yuanqi left. There were too many of these 5 million refugees. He had to go over and take charge of the situation. Zhou Zhou looked at Jing Yuanqi's back view and smiled. With these 6 million new subjects, the atmosphere in his territory finally eased. In fact, he had clearly felt it yesterday. With the million new refugees, his territory was clearly less impetuous. The smiles on every subject's faces increased. Even the average loyalty of the subjects had clearly increased. He opened the Lord Talent information of peace and prosperity. Lord Talent, peace and prosperity, Diamond Tier, peace and prosperity, same as before. Specific Talent Effect 1, same as before. Specific Talent Effect 2, same as before. Specific Talent Effect 3, same as before. Specific Talent Effect 4, same as before. Specific Talent Effect 5, when the number of subjects with loyalty of 90 points and above in the territory reaches 1 million, peace and prosperity will advance to the extraordinary tier Lord Talent, peaceful times. Current number of people, 961, 299/1000000, 960,000 already. Zhou Zhou nodded in satisfaction. At this rate of growth, he would probably be able to achieve it the day after tomorrow. When the time comes, he could directly freeload an extraordinary tier Lord Talent. Just thinking about it made him feel good. Then, he left and walked towards the Gate of Summoning. In front of the Gate of Summoning, Zhou Zhou looked at the building in front of him. Prompt, do you want to summon immediately? Yes. The next second, the Gate of Summoning suddenly lit up with a bright white light. Then, the 4,000 new subjects walked out of the Gate of Summoning. Greetings, my lord, X4000, all the new subjects said respectfully. Welcome to the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Zhou Zhou smiled. Then, he asked all the professionals to stand up and realized that he had summoned 241 professionals this time. There were 35 more professionals than usual. Then, he began to check the information of these professional subjects. Among the 241 professional subjects, were 1 Diamond Tier Intermediate Grade Demon Hunter, 1 Diamond Tier Intermediate Grade Martial Master, 2 Diamond Tier Intermediate Grade Blacksmiths, 1 Diamond Tier Intermediate Grade Tailor, and 1 Diamond Tier Intermediate Grade Gardener. The rest were Diamond Tier Elementary Grade and below Life Professionals and Combat Professionals. Demon Hunter. Zhou Zhou raised his eyebrows. It had been a long time since he had seen new professionals. He looked at the new subject. This person was tall and had a vigorous face. His calm eyes carried a hint of scarlet that was deeply hidden. He held a demon saber in his hand and carried a demon bow on his back. There were bottles and jars hanging from his waist. He looked different from a mortal. Zhou Zhou opened his attribute information. Subject, Girton, Territory, Blazing Sun Kingdom, Combat Class Name, Demon Hunter, Profession Class, Diamond Tier Intermediate Grade, Ability Overview. The young Girton resolved to become a demon hunter when he grew up after his parents died at the hands of the abyssal demons because of a demon disaster. After a hard search, Girton found the legendary demon hunter master, Geralt, and successfully acknowledged him as his master. Later on, Girton disappeared. While Girton was looking for his teacher, he also kept going to the abyss to hunt abyssal demons. Until one day, he received a summon from the Lord, so he came to the Blazing Sun Kingdom and became a subject of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Skills, Talent, Demon Sense, Talent, Blood Seeker Blood, Diamond Tier Intermediate Grade Demon Arms, Diamond Tier Intermediate Grade Demon Slaying Arrow, Diamond Tier Intermediate Grade Bloodseeker Armor, Diamond Tier Intermediate Grade Bloodseeker Shapeshift, Diamond Tier Intermediate Grade Lithe of Spirit Cat, Diamond Tier Intermediate Grade Silent Stealth, Diamond Tier Intermediate Grade Arms Repair, Loyalty. 85, Potential, Epic Tier Advanced Grade. Zhou looked at the attribute panel and nodded slightly. Not bad. However, it was not very outstanding. Zhou's standards were also higher now. If he saw this interface when he first came to the High Continent, he would definitely be shocked. Nowadays, however, he felt that it was very ordinary. Nonetheless, he was still quite interested in the profession of demon hunter. Therefore, he started chatting with Gurton. During the conversation, Zhou gradually learned the origins of the demon hunter profession. Demon hunters were a group of life forms who regarded demons as mortal enemies. At the same time, in order to obtain power to destroy the demons and fuse with the demon bloodline to obtain demon abilities and walk the path of an extraordinary tier. The potential of these demon hunters was based on the fusion of the demon bloodline. The stronger the fused demon bloodline, the higher the potential and future achievement. The weaker the fused demon bloodline, the lower the potential and the lower the achievement. This extraordinary tier class that did not need a class change certificate or long-term training to obtain extraordinary tier power looked good, but in fact, there were huge hidden dangers. Firstly, the lifespan of every demon hunter was extremely short. In this extraordinary tier world, the strongest demon hunter would not even live to be 50 years old. Secondly, since demon hunters obtained power by fusing with the demon bloodline, it was very easy for them to be bewitched by the unholy power in the demon bloodline during their growth, causing them to lose their will and become demons that only knew how to kill. Finally, it was the problem of the demon bloodline deciding the level of achievement. It could be said that the demon hunter was an extraordinary tier class with a very high upper limit and took shape very quickly, but it also had many flaws. After Zhou understood the information of this profession, he could not help but fall into deep thought. Chapter 591 The event of the King of 10,000 Kings that was about to commence gradually, Zhou's eyes lit up with interest. The upper limit of a demon hunter was very high and took shape very quickly. This was something he valued very much. Its so-called shortcoming was actually caused by the incompatibility between the life form bloodline and the demon bloodline. Demon hunters had a short lifespan because it was not completely compatible. There was a chance that they would be devoured by the demon bloodline and become a demon dweller. However, this was not a problem for Zhou. This was because he was a chaos human. The optimization ability of the chaos human bloodline could completely optimize the shortcomings of these demon bloodlines. In addition, his chaos human bloodline could be infinitely compatible with other bloodlines. Other demon hunters could only fuse one or two demon bloodlines and had to worry about conflict between them. However, Zhou could fuse with countless types of demon bloodlines and obtain many demon abilities without worrying about hidden dangers. The most painful problem to the demon hunters could be completely ignored by Zhou. Therefore, if Zhou chose to become a demon hunter, he would definitely be the perfect demon hunter. As long as I level up the full-time master of the battle god again, I can completely take on another demon hunter profession. Zhou thought to himself. It had to be said. He was very tempted. This demon hunter was too compatible with the chaos human bloodline. It was simply like an extraordinary tier class specially designed for the chaos human bloodline. It was second only to the chi practitioner he had now. Do you know what to do if I want to become a demon hunter? Thinking of this, Zhou asked Gurton. Gurton was stunned. He could feel that His Majesty had an extremely strong class aura on him. Why did His Majesty ask such a question? Your Majesty, the future troubles of becoming a demon hunter are extremely dangerous. You have a noble status. It's best not to be too involved with the profession of a demon hunter. Gurton tried his best to dissuade him tactfully. Zhou Zhou was not angry and chuckled. Girton could only choose to believe His Majesty's words. Then, he nodded and said that he knew the way to become a demon hunter. Zhou Zhou nodded. He was a little happy. He now had 3 bloodlines that could be upgraded indefinitely. Vampire bloodline, 10,000 Gu race bloodline, abyssal demon bloodline. He already had a way to obtain the first 2. The latter was even easier. The Night Temple itself led straight to the front line of the abyss. If he suggested to the Night Temple that he wanted to go to the abyss to conquer it, the other party would almost have no chance of refusing with his importance in the eyes of the Night Temple. After thinking this through, Zhou Zhou stopped chatting. After getting someone to arrange the residence and work of these new subjects, he led his troops to the monster ranch to clean up and retrieve the loots. As Mu Gu did not add a new monster ranch, the loot obtained today was similar to yesterday. Among the most important mist cores, he had obtained a total of 18. 2 million green bronze tier mist cores, 11 million white silver tier mist cores, 7. 2 million yellow gold tier mist cores, 6. 33 million white platinum tier mist cores, 2,417,000 diamond tier mist cores, and 88,000 extraordinary tier mist cores. In terms of soldier type class change and recruitment books, he obtained a total of more than 14 million soldier type class change certificates. 1,375,000 King of Yellow Gold recruitment books. 161,000 Poison Crossbow soldier recruitment books. 960 Elemental Archer recruitment books. 249,987 Aurora Cavalry recruitment books. 3 million Violent Storm Spirit recruitment books. As for the other loots, they were not very precious and important, so it was pointless to mention. Zhou Zhou was very satisfied with so many gains. After all, there were more than 4 million soldier-type recruitment books. He did not waste any time. He brought so many recruitment books to the Gate of Summoning and spent the Mist Corps to recruit all the new recruits. Zhou Zhou looked at the 4 million new recruits in front of him and subconsciously smiled. Some of these recruits had a total of 14,962,460 soldiers under his command. Coupled with the more than 4 million soldiers of the Star Alliance Masters, the total number of troops under his command had already exceeded 20 million, reaching the terrifying number of 4 million soldiers. This number happened to be the number of people of foreign races from the previous 16 countries. It was also worth mentioning that the Lords of the Star Alliance had all participated in the ceremony yesterday because it was the founding ceremony, so they did not go out to instigate with their incite defection. Even though he had wasted a day of incite defection, it was only a day. 20% of his military might only be hundreds of thousands of soldiers. In addition, yesterday was a special day, so Zhou Zhou did not pay much attention to it. After cleaning up the monster ranch, Zhou Zhou did not do anything else. Instead, he let the soldiers rest for a while and quietly waited for the King of 10,000 Kings event to begin. Taking advantage of this time, Zhou Zhou first opened the Kingdom channel to see the reactions of the subjects and the Star Alliance Masters. In the end, he realized that none of his subjects or the Lords of the Star Alliance were afraid of the upcoming King of 10,000 Kings event. They even looked forward to it so that their incite defection could show its might. Zhou Zhou smiled when he saw this. His incite defection Lord talent was indeed a good talent. In just a few days, these life lords who were previously afraid of war had actually become like this. Then, he opened the World Channel. The Lords of the World Channel were much more pessimistic. So many Cerulean Planet Lords died in the previous Myriad Races Lord battlefield. I wonder if he'll die this time. Don't be pessimistic, brothers. The event hasn't begun yet. We can't look down on ourselves first. Gather our courage first. To be honest, what you fight on the battlefield is true strength. Courage is useful, but not much. Big Boss Blazing Sun became number 1 in the last event. Do you think he can still become number 1 in this event? I don't think that's possible. Do they really think that lords from top-notch race forces are useless? We can't even imagine the foundation of their race civilization. In the Cerulean planet civilization, the racial civilization with the longest duration without interruption has only been around for 5,000 years. How can this compare to those racial civilizations that have developed for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of years? I think the Lord of the Blazing Sun was only lucky to obtain first place last time. Lucky? I laughed. Let me see if you're lucky. His Majesty is still capable. I'm a Lord of the Star Alliance. Don't think that you can say whatever you want just because you're talking on the World Channel. If you dare to badmouth our Majesty, be careful that we will find you one day. Zhou Zhou looked at the World Channel calmly and thought of the top lords of the original spirit race and the others he had encountered previously. He shook his head and stopped thinking about it. At this moment, a line of golden text suddenly appeared in front of Zhou Zhou, all the lords of all races, and even the local lords. Supreme Will Notification, the King of 10,000 Kings event is about to begin. Lords, please be prepared. Chapter 592 King of 10,000 Kings, 1, Zhou Zhou could not help but perk up when he saw the notification. The King of 10,000 Kings event had finally begun. A new activity notification appeared before he could react. It'll begin to announce the introduction and rules of the King of 10,000 Kings event now. King of 10,000 Kings event description: after the Supreme will led the lords of all races to the myriad race battlefield, while the Crimson Overlord did not care about the power of the new lords, it still strengthened its attack on the lord factions under the Supreme Will. It wanted to take down the local lord factions as quickly as possible and then turn to destroy the lords of all races. Under the attack of the endless Scarlet Lord forces, the local lord forces of the myriad worlds were under extreme pressure. No egg is unbroken when the nest is overturned. The lords of all races needed to do their best to help the local lord faction survive this crisis in the full offensive of the Scarlet Lord faction this time. Only then could they extend their development time and accumulate more stronger factions before the true Scarlet Crisis erupted. In order to let the lords of all races participate in the battle with all their might and to select outstanding lords, the Supreme will specially launch this King of 10,000 Kings event. The following are the specific rules of the event. Specific Event Rule 1: in this King of 10,000 Kings event, the lords of all races can temporarily join any kingdom or empire faction to fight the Crimson Kingdom or the Crimson Empire under the Crimson Overlord. Specific Event Rule 2: lords of all races who join the Kingdom faction/Empire faction can obtain the corresponding faction points and other rewards by completing the corresponding faction quests. Those who perform well in the war can obtain additional achievements, which is equivalent to a different number of faction points. Specific Event Rule 3: this event has two rankings, the Kingdom/Empire Camp ranking and the Lord of all Races Camp ranking. The former covers all the lords of all races who join the Kingdom/Empire Camp. The latter is only limited to the lords of a single race who have the most points. Specific Event Rule 3: after the event ends, the lords of all races ranked first on the Kingdom/Empire faction point ranking can obtain the Legendary/Mythical Tier King title reward, 1 Extraordinary Tier Advance Grade Kingdom token, 100 to 1000 Reputation Rating reward, and Faction reward. The lords of all races ranked first on the Lord's faction point ranking could obtain the highest level permanent King of 10,000 Kings title reward, 1 Kingdom token with special abilities, 100,000 Reputation Rating points, 10 Mythical Reputation Rating points, Faction reward, and 1 Mythical Treasure Chest reward. Specific Event Rule 4: in this event, the lords of all races can choose to join many non-hostile kingdoms, but they need a certain level of diplomacy. Specific Event Rule 5: this event will last for a month. After a month, the 330th Supreme Army will descend on the myriad races battlefield and repel all the invading Scarlet Lord forces. Special hint: during the event, a King of 10,000 Kings function icon will be added to the function list of the lords. You can click on this icon through your consciousness and obtain specific activity information. The King of 10,000 Kings function icon has been added to your lord function list. You can choose to join a designated faction in the corresponding function. Zhou Zhou read it twice and had a rough idea. He opened the lord function. As expected, he found the function icon of the King of 10,000 Kings on the rightmost side of the Lord's personal information, Cerulean Planet Lord's Marketplace, Reputation Ranking, Friend List, and Virtual Lord Battlefield. He opened the icon and looked at it. There were 4 options inside. They were, Join the Faction, Faction Quests, Achievement List, and Faction Points Ranking. Zhou Zhou clicked on, Join the Faction. In the end, he realized that there was a large number of factions he could join. Among them, the first place was, Human Race, Knight Empire, Friendly. The second was, Elves, Elven Empire, Friendly. Behind them were some Kingdom-level Lord factions and Empire-level Lord factions at the Diplomacy level, Initial Acquaintance. Zhou Zhou took a rough look. He realized that they were all Lord factions of the human race. He thought for a moment and remembered. Previously, he had participated in a dinner party invited by the Night Temple. During that dinner party, he had gotten to know many human big shots. Behind these human big shots seemed to be these kingdoms and empires. I didn't expect to establish diplomatic relations after just a meal. Those human big shots really care about me. Zhou Zhou thought. Then, his gaze landed on the top 2 Lord factions. Among them, the Human Race, Knight Empire, was one of the most important forces to establish the Night Temple. Not only was it one of the only 5 empires of the human race, the Lord of the Night Temple, by he, was also from the Night Empire. With the relationship with the Night Temple, Zhou Zhou was not surprised that the Night Empire had, friendly, diplomatic relations with the Blazing Sun Kingdom. After all, the Night Temple and the Night Empire had sent people to participate in the founding ceremony yesterday and had even given them quite expensive gifts. What surprised Zhou Zhou was his diplomatic relations with the Elven Empire. He had not interacted much with the Elven Empire other than Nadia. He did not expect their diplomatic relations to have already reached the level of friendliness. Zhou Zhou was even more surprised when he thought of how Nadia had given the Elven Mother Tree's sacred leaf on behalf of the Elven Empress. That Elven Empress really values me. Most of this friendly diplomacy level was probably contributed by the Elven Empress. Zhou Zhou thought for a moment and clicked to join these 2 factions. As for the factions with Initial Acquaintance, Zhou Zhou had no intention of joining for the time being. There was a limited time for the event, and his military strength was also limited. It was impossible for him to invest all his military strength in every country to complete their faction mission. He could only obtain the greatest benefits if he gathered all his forces on the 2 national factions with the highest diplomatic relations. It would not be too late to join the other factions to dig up faction quests after excavating the quests of these 2 empire factions. Text notifications appear one after another. You have chosen to join the Elven Empire faction. Applying, you have chosen to join the Human Knight Empire camp. Applying, he still had to apply. Zhou Zhou did not think too much about it and prepared to wait for a while. However, in less than 2 to 3 seconds, a new text notification appeared. The Elven Empire has approved your application. You have successfully joined this empire's camp. There is an additional Elven Empire camp channel added to your channel. Spatial teleportation array, Elven Empire, has been established. The Human Knight Empire has approved your application. You have successfully joined this empire's camp. There is an additional Knight Empire camp channel added to your channel. The spatial teleportation array, Knight Empire, has been established. Zhou Zhou was stunned. Already? He didn't think too much about it and felt that it might be the same for every country. Chapter 593 King of 10,000 Kings, 2, however, what Zhou Zhou did not know was that most of the cerulean planet lords had yet to have the chance to establish diplomatic relations with kingdom-level lord factions or empire-level lord factions because they had only been in the high continent for a short period of time. Therefore, after they opened the join the faction function, they suddenly realized that there were no factions they could join. Only a small number of cerulean planet lords who chose to go out to see the forces of local lords at the early stage of the territory's development were lucky enough to reach the diplomatic relations conditions and join the kingdom or empire faction. However, even so, these cerulean planet lords did not receive replies for a long time after choosing to join the faction. Especially the lords who chose the empire camp. Due to the huge territory of the empire's camp, the lord factions of the lord of all races neighboring it could be said to be vast. The number of lords who joined was countless. Therefore, after they chose to join, they did not obtain the approval of the application for a long time. They would only be considered after a while. Unlike Zhou Zhou, he joined in less than 2 to 3 seconds. It could be seen how much these two empires valued Zhou Zhou. In this King of 10,000 Kings event, the selection and removal, hidden rule that was not described had already begun from the moment he joined the faction. Speaking of which, Zhou Zhou opened the World Channel. As expected, he discovered 2 new channels on the right side of the World Channel and the Kingdom Channel. They were the Elven Empire Camp Channel and Night Empire Camp Channel. Zhou Zhou looked at the 2 channels curiously. Even though these 2 channels had just been established, dozens of lord comments had already appeared. Praise the great Elven Empire. After the Supreme will announce this event, the first thing I thought of was to serve the Empire. To serve Her Majesty the Empress. Therefore, I was the first to come. TSK, I just wanted to give it a try. I didn't expect it to really succeed. Wow. So many lords have joined so quickly. I thought I was the first. I'm the second to arrive. The first is the Lord of the Blazing Sun. You know who he is even without me saying anything, right? Fuck. The strongest lord of all races from the last event. He actually joined our Elven Empire. The tiny human lord should admire our Elven Empire very much, so he joined our Elven Empire immediately after the faction appeared. At Blazing Sun Kingdom, Lord of the Blazing Sun. Big Boss, how did you defeat so many top-notch lords of races and become the strongest lord of all races? How did you build a kingdom so quickly? Can you tell me? Zhou Zhou looked at the dozens of comments in confusion. He never expected that he would be mentioned even though he was only diving. However, he had no intention of replying. But at this moment, another line of comments appeared. Original Elven Empress, Elizariel, I've added you as a friend. Accept it. The camp channel was filled with ellipses mixed with bold question marks. Zhou Zhou was also stunned. Then, he hurriedly opened the friend request and found the Elven Empress friend request. Then, he chose to accept it. Blazing Sun Kingdom, Lord of the Blazing Sun. Accepted. Original Elven Empress, Elizariel, okay. Then, she sent a private message. Original Elven Empress, Elizariel, when will you come over? Blazing Sun Kingdom, Lord of the Blazing Sun, am preparing to go over soon. Original Elven Empress, Elizariel, okay, come straight to the Imperial Palace when you arrive. I'll tell you about our enemy. Blazing Sun Kingdom, Lord of the Blazing Sun, alright. The other party stopped sending messages. Zhou Zhou was a little stunned. He still did not dare to believe that this existence who spoke so casually and generously was actually the supreme ruler of the Elven Empire. Her tone was as natural as asking him to go over for lunch. Zhou Zhou scratched his head. Even though he was a little surprised by this Empress personality, it was not a bad thing to be so easygoing with. At this moment, he realized that there was also someone at him on the Night Empire Camp channel. He opened it and realized that the person who had tagged him was a knight called Alina. Alina, King of the Blazing Sun, am the daughter of the Lord of the Night Empire. You can call me Alina Andorra. Alina, please accept my friend request. I have something to discuss with you. After she finished speaking, the Night Empire camp channel was also in chaos. No one expected the daughter of the dignified Empire Lord to take the initiative to contact the Lord of all races. However, everyone understood after knowing the identity and background of the Lord of the Blazing Sun. Then, they felt envious. Zhou Zhou clicked his tongue. He did not say much and directly approved the other party's friend request. He also told the other party that he would go to them to discuss the specific war after he dealt with his matters. With the help of these two important figures of the Empire, I should be included in the faction quests. Zhou Zhou was also a little happy when he thought about how these two big shots had taken the initiative to interact. With these two layers of relationship, perhaps he could receive some faction quests with high faction points. This was undoubtedly extremely beneficial to him, increasing the ranking of the faction and even fighting for the title of King of 10,000 Kings. At this moment, Bai Yun walked towards him. At the same time, Wu Tu and 9 heroes followed behind her. 3 of the heroes were heroes from the Aurora Kingdom. The other 6 heroes were all new faces. Greetings, Your Majesty. They immediately said respectfully to Zhou Zhou when they arrived. There's no need to be so polite. Get up. Zhou Zhou chuckled. When the heroes heard this, they stood up respectfully. I'm the Dark Spirit Mage, Sun Yu, thank you for resurrecting me, Your Majesty. I have nothing to repay you. I can only pledge my loyalty to Your Majesty with my old, weak, sickly, and disabled body. Sun Yu shakily walked out of the heroes and thanked Zhou Zhou. He was wearing a dark black cloak and holding a dark black staff. His entire body emitted a dark aura. There were many wrinkles on his face. With a pair of glasses on his eyes, he did not look like an unholy mage at all. Instead, he had the temperament of an old pedant. I've long heard that you sacrificed yourself for the Snow River City, so I've always yearned and admired you. A mere resurrection is nothing. Old sir, there's no need to mention it. In the future, you can work in the Blazing Sun Kingdom in peace. Zhou Zhou smiled. Yes, my lord. Sun Yu said solemnly. Then, he retreated. After he retreated to the team, the 2 heroes beside him also stood up. They were the other 2 heroes of the original Aurora Kingdom. After they stood up, they explained to Zhou Zhou that they had already joined the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Zhou Zhou smiled and nodded. It seemed that the lobbyist he sent out was really good. He had actually invited all 3 heroes of the Aurora Kingdom to the Blazing Sun Kingdom and became his subjects. After the 2 of them finished speaking, the other 6 new heroes also stood up and bowed respectfully to Zhou Zhou. Among the 6 heroes, 3 of the heroes were heroes who had obtained the 3 hero inheritance secret manuals in the military merit exchange system with their achievements. As for the other 3 heroes, they were heroes created by the 3 hero inheritance manuals he had obtained from the 3 heroes of the people of foreign races he had killed outside the capital yesterday. Zhou Zhou looked at the 9 new heroes in front of him and the smile on his face deepened. With these 9 new heroes, the number of heroes under his command had already reached 44. This number was already comparable to the total number of heroes in 11 normal beginner kingdoms. With so many heroes around, he could have a higher chance of increasing his ranking in the face of the King of 10,000 Kings event that had just begun. Chapter 594 Book of the God Spirit and Wu Tu. At this moment, Wu Tu walked over and said respectfully and shamefully, Your Majesty, I've already absorbed the Book of the God Spirit you rewarded me. Wu Tu never expected this. He, who had made a huge mistake at the founding ceremony, was actually received by His Majesty on the same night. Not only that, but he was also personally given the incomparably precious inheritance of the Book of the God Spirit by His Majesty. This was an honor that even Bai Yun, Wuxia, and the other veterans had not obtained. He actually obtained it first. This made him both grateful and terrified. Zhou Zhou looked at the grateful and terrified expression on Wu Tu's face and sighed softly. Even though you were indeed at a disadvantage in patrolling yesterday, the other party is too strong. It's not all your fault. Then the ice demon god, Ba-Yi's god spirit inheritance is somewhat compatible with your own hero inheritance. Use it in peace. If you don't want to disappoint me, become a god as soon as possible. Zhou Zhou said. Yes, your majesty. Wu Tu nodded vigorously. The heavenly army under his command already had a large number of high-level cartographers. He did not need to do the mapping himself every time he went out. As a leader and one of the heroes of the Blazing Sun Kingdom, it was indeed time for him to increase his strength. The strength of a diamond tier advance grade was indeed not enough to convince the masses in front of other domestic heroes who were all extraordinary tier and epic tier. Zhou Zhou did not say anything. He only patted his shoulder and asked him to leave. Then, he opened the kingdom channel and entered a small group composed of all the lord components of the Star Alliance. He was naturally the group leader of this small group. Alliance master at everyone, no one has chosen a faction yet, right? Hundreds of replies immediately appeared below. No. I'm ashamed, there's no faction to choose from among my faction options. I do have one, but I don't really want to go. That's a goblin kingdom. The goblins inside are a group of people who bully the weak and fear the strong. Fuck, if I join their faction, I probably won't have any chance of obtaining faction points. At that time, it'll be too unjustifiable if they drag me down and destroy my country with them. +1, I think so too. Unfortunately, even though His Majesty has established a kingdom, it's not a local faction. It's not in the faction option, that's right, follow His Majesty. +1. +2. +11, 111. Zhou Zhou looked at the Lord's replies and nodded in satisfaction. It seemed that his Lord's subordinates were not rash people. They did not rashly choose to join any available factions as soon as the event began. He began to type. Alliance Master, bring your soldiers to the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Then, it'll bring you to the two empires to see if you can get two, initial acquaintance, diplomatic relations. If you succeed, you can accept the faction quests together. As soon as he sent the messages, the lords of the Star Alliance cheered. His Majesty is really strong. He directly got us to cozy up to two empire factions. I'm so happy. Fortunately, I didn't choose the Goblin Kingdom. Long live His Majesty. Long live the Alliance Master. Alliance Master, keep a low profile. Then, he asked Bai Yun to get the soldiers to prepare. At the same time, when the lords of the Star Alliance brought their troops over, they would govern the soldiers together. Then, he called Qi Xiantian and Su into a school ground and waited for the Star Alliance masters to arrive. The lords came over. Your Majesty. Greetings, Your Majesty. Your Majesty, we're here. After the lords arrived, they surrounded Zhou Zhou and said respectfully and excitedly. Have you arranged for the soldiers? Zhou Zhou looked at them and asked. It's all arranged. Legion Commander Bai has already taken over. Don't worry, Your Majesty. Your Majesty, when do we set off? There's no time to lose. Let's set off now. Zhou Zhou heard the questions from the crowd and said with a faint smile. Then, he led everyone and followed his senses. Soon, they arrived at the two spatial teleportation arrays. What a huge spatial teleportation array. How many people will be teleported this time? This teleportation array is so majestic, it is indeed a spatial teleportation array worthy of being connected to an empire's camp. Did you see that? The ability of this spatial teleportation array is a little awesome. I'm suddenly a little cowardly. Do you think we'll be ambushed and be wiped out all at once when we get there? It shouldn't be, right? The Lords of the Star Alliance could not help but exclaim when they saw the two spatial teleportation arrays in front of them. Zhou Zhou said nothing. He was also looking at the two spatial teleportation arrays. These two spatial teleportation arrays occupied an extremely vast area. Each spatial teleportation array was actually tens of thousands of square kilometers in size. This area was enough to accommodate tens of millions of soldiers for teleportation. Zhou Zhou focused on one of the spatial teleportation arrays. A text notification appeared. Formation name, Spatial Teleportation Array, Night Empire, Formation Level, Special Level, Formation Effect, Super Teleportation. All subjects and resources of the lords of all races within the range of the formation can be teleported to the territory of the Night Empire at any time through the spatial teleportation array. She could also teleport back from the spatial teleportation array in the territory of the Kingdom Camp/Empire Camp, but the life forms of the Kingdom Camp/Empire Camp could not come to the territory of the Lord of all races through this spatial teleportation array. The energy consumed for teleportation is provided by the Supreme Will. Formation description, the exclusive spatial teleportation array for the King of 10,000 Kings event. It will automatically disappear after the King of 10,000 Kings event ends. He looked at the other spatial teleportation array. It was the Elven Empire's spatial teleportation array. What a pity. It will actually disappear after the event. I thought I could freeload two spatial teleportation arrays. Zhou Zhou muttered in his heart. The effects of these two exclusive Empire Camp spatial teleportation arrays could not be said to be weak. Not only was the area extremely vast, it could teleport a large number of soldiers and supplies at once. Most importantly, teleportation of this level was actually free. The Supreme Will was in charge of the teleportation energy. It could be seen how much the Supreme Will valued this event. He turned to look at the Lords of the Star Alliance who were discussing and communicating with each other. He heard some special voices from it. Afraid that we would be wiped out all at once after teleporting over. Zhou Zhou was a little stunned. Then, he reacted. Well, these guys still did not know about his diplomatic relations with these two empires. It was normal for them to be a little worried about an unknown teleportation trip. He had neglected this aspect, so he did not hesitate and opened the page with his diplomatic relations between the two empires. Then, he took a screenshot and sent it to the group, telling everyone not to worry. With diplomatic relations of this level, there would basically be no danger if he teleported over unless there was an especially big accident. Even if there was really danger, Zhou Zhou also had a trump card that could send them and him back safely. Everyone, come up. Let's set off for the Night Empire first. Zhou Zhou stopped thinking about it. After he finished speaking, he was the first to step onto this spatial teleportation array. Qi Xiantian and Su An followed closely behind. The other lords of the Star Alliance boldly walked up when they saw this night. After all the lords walked up, Zhou Zhou chanted teleportation in his heart. The next second, the entire spatial teleportation array suddenly emitted a silver light that soared into the sky before gradually disappearing. Zhou Zhou and the others also disappeared. Chapter 595 Princess of the Empire. Alina's Heartbeat. Nulin Military Fortress of the Night Empire. When Zhou Zhou and the others left the darkness and saw their surroundings again, they realized that they had already arrived at a huge military fortress. The entire military fortress looked a little old, but it gave off an indestructible feeling. Most of the people walking on the streets were weathered soldiers. The rest were ordinary subjects. However, if one took a closer look, they would discover that these subjects had an extremely good relationship with the soldiers. They looked like either relatives or good friends. Rows and rows of cavalrymen were gathered around the spatial teleportation array. He took a rough look. There were nearly 10,000 cavalrymen. At this moment, they also discovered the phenomenon of the spatial teleportation array and saw Zhou Zhou and the others. Then, one of them, who was clearly a general, quickly rode over with a team of soldiers. "Greetings, everyone." After this general came over, he immediately jumped off his horse and said with a smile. Then, his eyes quickly landed on Zhou Zhou's face and his eyes lit up. He looked at the humans beside him who were basically above the intermediate level and felt that his guess might be right. "You're the king of the Blazing Sun Kingdom, right? As expected of someone who possesses celestial appearance. These subjects of yours are all dragons and phoenixes among men." He smiled in surprise. Even though the Night Empire he was in was quite far from the Blazing Sun Kingdom, he also heard many legends about him as the Lord of the Blazing Sun's many achievements and rumors spread. Among them, the rumor that one could become better looking by joining the Blazing Sun Kingdom was the most unreliable one he felt. Become good looking after joining a kingdom? How is that possible? It sounded like a lie deliberately made up to attract the refugees from the outside world to join. However, later on, as more and more cases of people becoming handsome and beautiful spread back to the empire, he was already a little swayed even though he still did not believe it in the depths of his heart. He saw Zhou Zhou and his subjects' astounded faces and thought of the previous legend. He immediately guessed that the person who came was the human Lord of the Blazing Sun who had defeated the Lord of all races and obtained the title of the strongest Lord of all races. "That's me." Zhou Zhou nodded. He looked at him. With his epic tier elementary grade strength and the super six senses of the chaos human race, he could see through the other party's strength even without relying on his attribute panel. Legendary tier elementary grade. This general's strength was shockingly at the legendary tier elementary grade. Zhou Zhou raised his eyebrows slightly. The Night Empire was really efficient. They actually sent experts of this level and a group of subordinates to protect this spatial teleportation array in such a short period of time. "Princess Alina has been waiting for you for a long time. Please follow me," the general said politely just as Zhou Zhou was surprised by the other party's efficiency and looked at him. Even though he looked normal on the surface, he was secretly surprised. What happened? From the looks of it, the other party was only an epic tier elementary grade lord of all races. Even though such strength was already unbelievable in the strength of the lords of all races, he should be nothing to him, a legendary tier elementary grade expert with experience. Why did he actually feel a sense of danger from him that made him tremble in fear? It was as if the other party could kill him with a flick of his finger. Could it be? Was the rumor that this Lord of the Blazing Sun's astonishing combat strength true? But no matter how real it was, it shouldn't be so strong, right? The general realized that he really could not understand the young man in front of him. Zhou Zhou could vaguely sense what the other party was thinking. However, he did not say anything. "Please lead the way," he said. "Please follow me. As for your subordinates," the general nodded and looked at the people behind him, his meaning self-evident. "Qi Xiantian, follow me. Suan, stay behind and follow Linger and the others. General, please arrange a place for them to rest for the time being. Is that convenient?" Zhou Zhou asked after making the arrangements. "Of course. Sure." Zhou Zhou nodded and led Qi Xiantian to follow the general towards Princess Alina's palace. Suan followed the other lords of the Star Alliance and another soldier in another direction. Zhou Zhou was not worried about their safety. This was because he had been careful and placed a blood bat avatar on Suan before he left. This way, he would be able to know immediately if anything happened to him. Then, he would rush over immediately or directly activate his Lord talent, return to the city to bring them back to the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Jade Sun Hall. This was a temporary palace. Zhou Zhou and Qi Xiantian walked into the palace under the lead of the general and quickly saw Princess Alina. Even though this princess name was a little westernized, she had the beautiful face of an Eastern beauty. Her hands were soft and her skin was smooth. Her collar bones were obvious and she had a delicate head and moth-like eyebrows. She smiled sweetly with her pearly white teeth and looked forward. In terms of appearance, she was not inferior to the top beauty, Leia. However, there was clearly something different between the two of them. Leia had the heroic bearing of a princess of a large country. On the other hand, the other party had a noble and ethereal feeling. This temperament. Zhou Zhou and Qi Xiantian looked at each other. A Qi practitioner. This princess of the empire with a westernized name was also a Qi practitioner like them. Zhou Zhou reacted in time. What was so strange about this? She was the princess of an empire and controlled countless human resources. Wasn't it simple to obtain the Qi practitioner class change certificate and high-level Qi refinement cultivation technique? General Hulu, take your men and leave. I want to talk to this king of the blazing sun alone. At this moment, Alina's voice sounded like a yellow oriole's soft cry. Yes, your highness. General Hulu, who had brought Zhou Zhou and the other two over, said without hesitation. Then, he turned around and left. You should leave too. I'll have a good chat with this princess. Zhou Zhou said to Qi Xiantian. Qi Xiantian did not hesitate and turned to leave. The publicly acknowledged number one in combat strength in the Blazing Sun Kingdom was not him, but His Majesty. He would indeed be in the way if he continued staying here. After the two of them left the palace with the others, only Zhou Zhou and Princess Alina were left in the hall. I wonder why your highness asked me to stay alone. Zhou Zhou took the initiative to ask. Princess Alina looked at Zhou Zhou under the hall in a daze. So handsome. She subconsciously thought. So this is the celestial appearance. In the past, she had only heard of such an existence from her mother. She thought that it was just a legend. She did not expect to really see it. Moreover, this was the first time she had seen it in reality. It could actually make one's heart race. This guy is even better looking than what mother described. She thought to herself. Her heart beat faster again. It was a feeling he had never experienced before. Your Highness. Seeing that the other party did not speak for a long time, Zhou Zhou spoke again. Cough cough, I heard that the subjects who join your kingdom will become even better looking. Is that true? Alina blurted out. Zhou Zhou. Chapter 596 King of 10,000 Kings. Tribulation of all races. Zhou Zhou did not expect this to be the first question the princess of an empire would ask him. Everyone loves beauty. It is indeed the ancient truth. Yes. Zhou Zhou nodded and admitted it. I really want to see your magical territory. Princess Alina's eyes were filled with curiosity and yearning as she sighed. With the strength of the Night Empire, there will always be a chance when Her Highness is free in the future. Zhou Zhou smiled. The spatial teleportation array between them could only teleport the lords of all races to the territory of the Empire's camp, but it could not allow people from the Empire's camp to head to the Lord's territory. It could be seen that this was a measure specially set up by the Supreme Will to protect the lords of all races, preventing them from being overtaken by the local lord faction. When I'm free, Princess Alina shook her head with a sigh. She didn't say anything else and smiled. Let me reintroduce myself. I live with my king father and the queen mother. For some reason, I have two names. The name that follows my mother is the Alina you're calling now. In addition, I have another name that follows my father, Yu Ling. Most subjects in the country call me Princess Alina because I live with my mother most of the time. But I won't mind if you want to call me Princess Yu Ling. Princess Alina or Princess Yu Ling smiled. Princess Yu Ling. Zhou Zhou hesitated for a moment and immediately called out this name. The other party had an Eastern face. Even though she had faint mixed blood characteristics, Zhou Zhou still felt that Yu Ling was more appropriate. Princess Yuling smiled and nodded. This time, the attack of endless scarlet forces swept through the entire high continent covered by all the Lord of all races. In the eyes of the lords of all races, the Supreme Will calls this incident the King of 10,000 Kings event. And us local kingdoms and empire-level forces learn from the Supreme Will that this matter is a tribulation of all races. Zhou Zhou raised his eyebrows slightly. Princess Yuling was still saying, "Our Night Empire has already felt the immense pressure of this calamity on the main battlefield. Do you know how many Scarlet Empires are besieging our Night Empire now?" Princess Yuling asked. 3. Zhou Zhou tried to give a number. This was already quite bold in his heart. "No. There are 6 of them." Princess Yuling said this shocking number with a solemn expression. This is only an empire-level Scarlet force. In addition, there are at least 500 kingdom-level Scarlet Lord factions wandering inside and outside our Night Empire, constantly attacking our Night Empire and the surrounding empire-level factions and kingdom-level factions. Right now, there are nearly 1 billion Scarlet monsters fighting constantly around our Night Empire. There are also more than 10 Scarlet God spirits. It can be said that kingdom-level Lord factions are constantly being destroyed by the Scarlet faction at all times. I'm afraid even the Empire won't be able to last long. The situation is not very good. Zhou Zhou's face turned green. Fuck. You call this situation not very good? Princess Yuling, aren't you too big-hearted? Zhou Zhou had thought that even if he could not be said to be a strong force when he came to these 2 empire camps, with the 20 million troops he currently controlled he could at least be an outstanding leader in the war with the Scarlet faction. In the end, 1 billion Scarlet troops and more than 10 God spirits stunned him. In front of these 1 billion soldiers, the troops led by Zhou Zhou were only a small fry. Not to mention those true God spirits. The reason why he could kill a god last time was more or less because of the advantage of the Absolute Light and the Holy Light Sword, the 2 law skills. He did not think that he would really be able to fight them fearlessly just because he killed a god spirit by luck. Moreover, Zhou Zhou did not dare to imagine. If the Night Empire was already in such a state, the Elven Empire, which was countless times larger than the Night Empire, was facing the siege of the Crimson Kingdom and the Scarlet Empire. He had thought that joining 2 empire factions would be a huge advantage for him. He never expected that there was also so much trouble behind this advantage. If he was not careful, he might die in this event. Is there anything I can do? Zhou Zhou was silent for a while before saying. Since he was here, he would take it easy. Since he had already chosen this place, he should complete the faction quests well. However, he had to be careful next. A battlefield of this level was not something he could do as he pleased. Same old rules. He had to be cautious. Yes. Princess Yuling nodded after hearing Zhou Zhou's words. However, this matter is a little difficult. If you're willing to accept it, I can arrange other quests for you. She said. Tell me about it first. Zhou Zhou did not refuse and asked first. There's a Divine Sword Empire 5 billion kilometers away from our Night Empire. That's also one of the 5 great empires of our human race. The tribulation of all races is coming aggressively this time. I'm afraid it's very difficult for one single empire to survive this calamity. Therefore, I want to send you to the Divine Sword Empire to find His Majesty the Sword Emperor and communicate about the cooperation. We wanted to send someone ourselves. However, the Empire is surrounded by scarlet monsters now, and our military strength is stretched thin. We can't spare any extra strength to do this. That's why I want to give you this important task. Princess Yuling said seriously. 5 billion kilometers. That's very far, how can I get there? Zhou Zhou frowned. Don't worry about that. At that time, we will give you a map along the way. On the map, the location of the various spatial teleportation arrays will be marked. Through the spatial teleportation array, you and your army can cross billions or even tens of billions of kilometers in a short period of time. It's actually not difficult to reach a distance of more than 60 billion kilometers. The difficult thing is the enemies you will encounter along the way. Princess Yuling said solemnly, we all know the importance of the spatial teleportation array, so the enemy naturally knows. If there are no surprises, those spatial teleportation arrays are either controlled by the enemy or completely destroyed. Retrieving the spatial teleportation array from the enemy is the greatest difficulty of your trip. How is it? Are you willing to accept this mission? Princess Yuling asked. A mission notification that he had not seen in a long time appeared in front of Zhou Zhou as soon as she finished speaking. Chapter 597 Legendary Tier Advanced Grade Faction Quests. Night Empire Camp, Princess Yuling has issued you a faction quest. Alliance name, Faraway Divine Sword Empire, Quality of Quests, Legendary Tier Advanced Grade, Highest, Unique, Quest Content. The terrifying enemy of the tribulation of all races makes the Night Empire feel immense pressure. They have no choice but to go out and find allies to seek support. You need to lead your soldiers away from the Night Empire and rush to the Divine Sword Empire to seek help. During this process, you need to snatch back at least 12 Legendary Tier Advanced Grade Spatial Teleportation Arrays, 0/12, 26 Epic Tier Advanced Grade Spatial Teleportation Arrays, 0/26, 114 Extraordinary Tier Advanced Grade Spatial Teleportation Arrays, 0/114. From the Scarlet Lord forces to open the path between the Night Empire and the Divine Sword Empire, allowing the Night Empire and the Divine Sword Empire to exchange needs and even teleport the army and experts to support and cooperate. If it succeeds, you will obtain the friendship of the two human empires and other huge benefits. However, if you fail, disappointment is inevitable, but you could also lose your life. Please think carefully before making your choice. Mission Reward, 100 million faction points, diplomatic relations between the Night Empire and the Divine Sword Empire to be upgraded to the level of respect, a Death Sword selection opportunity in the Death Sword Demonic Abyss, the loyalty of 10,000 Empire-level combat class, Army Extermination Knights, 1,000 Legendary Tier Mist Cores. Prompt, every time you open a spatial teleportation array, you will be rewarded with a portion of faction points. If you choose to give up the quest halfway, this portion of faction points will not be retracted. Zhou Zhou looked at the reward thoughtfully. He looked at the quest and felt a little emotional. A Legendary Tier Advanced Grade Top-Notch Quest. There was no higher level faction quest than this. It was really as he had thought. His choice to come to the Empire's camp had indeed brought him great convenience. If he went to a Kingdom/Empire camp that he was unfamiliar with, he might not even be able to stand out from the thousands of lords and obtain the most basic faction quest. Unlike now, a top-notch faction quest was directly sent to him. It was his decision whether to take it or not. He looked at the quest for a while. Finally, his gaze landed on the mission reward and could not help but be tempted. The 100 million faction points alone made him very excited. If he could obtain this amount of faction points, he could completely reach the top of the Empire faction points rankings. He might even be able to enter the top 10 or even the top 3 of the Lord faction points rankings. If the diplomatic relations between the two empires were upgraded to a respectful level, it would also make it easier for him to do many things in these two empires in the future. As for the Death Sword opportunity in the Death Sword Demonic Abyss, even though he did not know much about it, being able to be on the same level with the previous conditions meant it should be an extremely good reward. The loyalty of 10,000 Empire-level combat class, the Army Extermination Knight was needless to say. Every Army Extermination Knight was an Empire-level combat class. Each of them was in existence that could fight against 10,000 people alone on the battlefield. They could even destroy an army alone. This was also why they were called the Army Extermination Knights. Zhou Zhou only had more than 100 of such terrifying individual combat strength. If he could obtain the loyalty of these 10,000 army extermination knights, his strength would definitely increase. As for the last 1,000 legendary tier mist cores, they were the rewards he did not care about the most. At the thought of this, Zhou Zhou almost wanted to agree to this princess immediately. Fortunately, he still asked two questions carefully and calmly. Your Highness, what if we discover a damaged spatial teleportation array and can't repair it? Don't worry about that. If you decide to take on this mission, we will naturally equip you with the corresponding team of spatial teleportation array maintenance team. At that time, they will be in charge of this. Are there any more questions? Princess Yuling asked. Yes. If we can use these spatial teleportation arrays to travel unimpeded to the Divine Sword Empire and complete the mission before returning, how long do you think it will take? If everything goes smoothly, it will be about 10 days. If it's faster, 7 days might be enough. Princess Yuling thought for a moment and said. Zhou Zhou heaved a sigh of relief. It was fine then. The King of 10,000 Kings event lasted for a month. It was not impossible to spend 7 or 10 days to obtain 100 million faction points. If he encountered trouble that he could not resolve halfway, he would give up on this mission at most. In any case, this quest did not give up the punishment. When the time comes. At most, he would only receive faction points as a reward for opening the spatial teleportation array. I can take this mission. But I want to ask your Highness for a small favor first. The lords I brought are all lords of the Cerulean planet. They are also my subordinates. I want to bring them along to complete this mission. Can your Highness raise their diplomatic relations with your country to the extent that they can join the faction? Zhou Zhou said. That's simple. I can do it now. Princess Yuling asked. With that, she closed her eyes. 2 to 3 seconds later, she opened her eyes and looked at Zhou Zhou with a faint smile. It's done. Their external relationship with my Knight Empire has already reached the initial acquaintance level. With such diplomatic relations, they can already join our Knight Empire's faction and accept our Empire's faction quests. Thank you, Your Highness. It's just a small matter. Don't worry. Then, the two of them chatted for more than half an hour about the details of this faction mission. Then, Zhou Zhou left the palace and met up with his subordinates and lords again. Seeing that everyone had successfully joined the Knight Empire's faction, Zhou Zhou sought their assistance for this legendary tier advanced grade faction quest. With this assistance quest, they would also obtain some faction points and some other rewards when they went out with him to complete missions. In addition, even though it was only an assistance quest, it was also an epic tier advanced grade assistance quest. The faction points awarded were also quite shocking, enough for them to surpass the other lords of the myriad races in many factions. Your Majesty, where are we going now? Are we going to do the quest now? The Paper Immortal Lord asked expectantly. There's no hurry. Princess Yuling has to deploy a team of spatial teleportation array maintenance teams before we can set off. Let's go to the Elven Empire first and see if we can also accept a high-yielding faction quest in the Elven Empire. When the time comes, we might be able to do both faction quests together. Zhou Zhou said. No one had any objections. Then, everyone used the spatial teleportation array to return to the back blazing Sun Kingdom. After they left, Princess Yuling walked out of the palace and looked at the spot where they were. He clearly knew that there would be many dangers on the way to this quest, but he still dared to accept the quest. Is he simply confident or arrogant? She muttered. Chapter 598 Elven Mother Tree in Divine Kingdom Star Whisper City, Elven Empire. The faction's exclusive spatial teleportation array. When Zhou Zhou and the others appeared on the spatial teleportation array, a group of elves wearing exquisite light armor, strange flower crowns, bows, and swords on their backs immediately surrounded them before they could react. They were all young female elves. They had slender figures, exquisite faces, light green eyes, and pointed ears. They looked like one in a million beauties among ordinary people. The lords brought by Zhou Zhou were stunned when they saw so many elves. Some of the lords even had infatuation in their eyes. One had to know that they had all been enhanced by beauty, but even so, a large portion of them were not even as good-looking as these elves. It could be seen how exaggerated their appearance and figures were. Only Zhou Zhou could firmly crush the looks of these elves with his celestial appearance. Some of the elves looked at Zhou Zhou with beautiful light green eyes that lit up. The elves were a race that loved beauty. Many elves would even use appearance as the criteria when choosing their spouse. Therefore, Zhou Zhou's stunning face captured the hearts of many elves the moment he appeared in front of them. Even the captain of the elven guards looked at Zhou Zhou's appearance and was stunned for a moment before coming back to her senses. "You must be the king of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Please follow me. We need to transfer to another spatial teleportation array and head to the Elven Imperial City first. Her Majesty is waiting for you." The captain of the guard said politely. "Sure." Zhou Zhou nodded. Then, he called for everyone to walk down from the spatial teleportation array. Thick spatial power erupted, forming a spatial passageway with endless suction behind it, directly sucking it into the spatial rift. The captain of the guards frowned slightly, but she did not say anything and led everyone to another spatial teleportation array. On the way, Zhou Zhou glanced at the distant city wall. This Whisper City was not inferior to the Blazing Sun Kingdom. But even so, he could also hear shouts and battle sounds from afar. He could even clearly hear the roars of the scarlet monsters. Zhou Zhou's heart turned slightly solemn. When Zhou Zhou and the others arrived, they were immediately shocked by the scene. All kinds of natural scenery fused perfectly with the various buildings in the elven style. Ancient trees and buildings more than 10,000 meters tall could be seen everywhere. All kinds of civilization wonders and special buildings were dazzling, generously showing the terrifying foundation of this empire that had developed for tens of thousands of years. There were strange flowers, strange plants, people of foreign race life forms, and many things that they had never heard or seen before. However, this was not the most shocking thing. There were two things that shocked him the most. One was a golden ancient tree that was tens of thousands of meters tall. It shot into the sky and covered the sky. The golden crown that covered the entire elven imperial city was like a heavenly canopy given by the god spirit, protecting the entire elven imperial city and countless elven citizens. What shocked everyone was that they saw a star. An incomparably huge star. The star was even larger than this divine tree. It stood tall in the sky and emitted a majestic life aura. If one listened carefully, they could even hear the holy songs of the god spirits chanting softly. Everyone was so shocked that they did not know what to say. Even Zhou Zhou did not speak for a moment. However, at the same time, the bloodline inheritances from the various bloodline races in his mind were also quickly flipping through the information. They told him about the origin of this divine tree and that star almost immediately. Elven Mother Tree, Abigail. The true god tier of fertility and breeding, Octavel's divine kingdom star. Zhou Zhou muttered under his breath. He was shocked. It was one thing for his bloodline to record such inheritances, but seeing them with his own eyes in reality was another matter. Especially the latter. That was a true god tier existence. If the master god tier did not appear, the true god tier would be the overlord of this world. He did not expect the Elven Empire to be protected by a true god tier. It seemed that the rumors were right. This generation of Elven Empress indeed had hope of building the Elven Empire into an Elven divine kingdom. This was because the hardest and most important thing about building a divine kingdom was to have 3 true god-tier existences protect their country. Everything was difficult at the beginning. Since there was already one, the next 2 would not be very difficult. At this moment, the captain of the guard who had brought them here had wanted to introduce their elven capital to Zhou Zhou and the others. Especially the elven mother tree and the divine kingdom star in the sky. However, when she heard Zhou Zhou's whisper, she looked a little surprised. This human lord from the unknown cerulean planet actually knew about this. It had to be known that even many veteran kingdoms might not know what was going on with the elven mother tree and the divine kingdom star because the various forces had always been very conservative. This human lord could actually tell the details immediately and even recognized which god spirit the god spirit star came from. Even ordinary high-level bloodline races might not be able to compare to such knowledge. She originally looked down on these country bumpkin lords from the cerulean planet. It was just that she pretended to be polite on the surface and held herself in high regard, so she did not show it. However, she no longer harbored that contempt now. It seemed that the reason why this human lord could obtain the title of the strongest lord of all races was indeed not because of luck. Everyone continued to walk towards the imperial palace. "May I ask how I should address you?" Zhou Zhou asked the captain after coming back to his senses. "My name is Ali, the captain of the 3rd Guards of the Imperial Palace." Ali said casually. "My name is Zhou Zhou." Zhou Zhou smiled and said. After that, everyone went all the way to the Imperial Palace and quickly saw the original Elven Empress, Elizariel, sitting cross-legged on the throne. Nonetheless, only Zhou Zhou met the Empress again. As for the others, they waited at the entrance of the hall for the time being. "Your Majesty, the King of the Blazing Sun has been brought here," Ali said respectfully. "Good work. You can leave." The Elven Empress, who was wearing a gorgeous resplendent dress and had extremely beautiful facial features, said calmly. "Yes, Your Majesty." Ali said respectfully and left quietly. "Greetings, Your Majesty." Zhou Zhou said respectfully. This was the Empress who ruled the entire elves. It was not embarrassing to be polite. There's no need to be so polite. Since you've joined my Elven Empire faction, we're considered friends. You should need faction points, right? I have a quest that you should be interested in. It depends on whether you're confident enough to take it. Elizariel went straight to the point. What is it? Zhou Zhou asked cautiously. Chapter 599 Faction Quest, Lost True God Tier Divine Artifact Fragment. There's a ruin of the divine battlefield in the territory of our Elven Empire. Every time a war breaks out, this ruins of the God War can gather majestic life and death power to open its door. At that time, the living beings from the outside world can enter and search for the treasures left behind in the ruins of the God War battlefield. I want you to enter and retrieve one of the divine artifact fragments of the true God tier. Then, bring it back to me. As long as you can complete this matter, I won't be stingy with the reward. Moreover, I can distribute faction points to you to the greatest extent, making you almost 100% the King of Lords in our Elven Empire's camp. As for your Lord of all Races faction points ranking, I will also do my best to help you increase your ranking. However, what rank you can stay in the end will depend on your strength. How about that? The Empress suggested calmly. It was as if she knew the content of the activities of the Lord of all Races very well. Zhou Zhou was not surprised. With this Empress status, it was too easy for her to understand such information. He looked at the mission notification that had just appeared in front of him. Elven Empire Camp, Original Empress Elizariel has issued a faction quest to you. Alliance name, Lost True God Tier Divine Artifact Fragment, Quality of Quest, Legendary Tier Advanced Grade, Highest, Unique, Quest Description. In the territory of the Elven Empire, there is a battlefield of the gods that involves the battle of the god spirits. This battlefield has been completely closed off for tens of thousands of years. Only when a vast amount of vitality and death energy gathers will a world fissure open on this battlefield, allowing life forms from the outside world to enter. You need to enter the World Fissure on the day it opens and obtain the true God-tier intermediate grade divine artifact fragment, Spirit Nurturing Stone Seed. Hand it to the original Elven Empress and you will receive a large number of rewards. Quest reward, 300 million faction points, diplomatic relations with the Elven Empire to be upgraded to the level of admiration, a nature child elf bloodline of high-level god-tier advanced grade, the loyalty of 10,000 nature elves, 10,000 legendary tier mist cores, the friendship of the original Elven Empress, Elizariel. At the same time, Elizariel will help you increase your ranking in the King of 10,000 Kings event. What generous rewards! Zhou looked at the reward and could not help but be a little surprised. This reward was much richer than the reward given to him by the Night Empire. However, his expression became serious again. Given the size of the Elven Empire, the fact that it could take out so many rewards as rewards for the faction quests also showed how difficult this faction quest was. It was probably several times or even more difficult than the Night Empire's faction mission. If I can't get the divine artifact fragment you want, can I give up on this mission? Zhou asked first. Of course. However, if you give up the quest, I won't help you increase your ranking in this King of 10,000 Kings event. When the time comes, you will only be like the other lords of the Elven Empire's camp and find your own faction quest to obtain faction points as a reward. Elizariel said. Of course. Then I'm willing to accept this faction quest. Zhou nodded. With that, he directly accepted this mission. When will this divine battlefield you mentioned be opened? Where is it? He immediately asked after accepting the quest. Now that the Scarlet Lord's faction has just attacked, the life and death energy accumulated is not enough. Normally speaking, it will take at least 10 days for the divine battlefield to absorb enough life force and death energy to open the World Fissure and Trance. However, I've already sent the various armies of the Elven Empire to speed up the destruction of the Scarlet forces near the Empire. It should be enough to open the entrance to the divine battlefield after destroying 2 to 3 Scarlet Empires or 200 to 300 Crimson Kingdoms. Don't worry. At that time, I will send my subordinates to inform you of the time and location. You can look for other faction quests to complete during this period. At this point, Elizariel flipped her right hand, and a golden token appeared in her palm. The golden token was engraved with the tree patterns of the Elven Mother Tree. She waved her hand gently, and the token flew over and landed on Zhou's injuries. This is the Elven Holy Token. Only 10 of them are distributed in the entire Elven Empire. I'll lend it to you for a month. During this period, you can go to the major cities of the Elven Empire to find the faction quests publisher. When the time comes, show this token in front of them and they will allow you to accept any level of faction quests without the corresponding faction level requirements. If you have nothing to do, you can do these small quests. She said casually. Thank you, Your Majesty. Zhou was overjoyed. Then, he looked at the other party's indifferent face and hesitated for a moment before saying, Your Majesty, you don't seem nervous about the tribulation of all races this time. Nervous? Elizariel chuckled. Don't compare our Elven Empire to those other small empires. This tribulation of all races event can indeed be considered a calamity for the other empires. After this tribulation of all races event, countless kingdoms and even empires are destined to die in this calamity. But it's only a little troublesome to our Elven Empire. Moreover, it can also be said to be a huge opportunity. An opportunity? Zhou was stunned. Emicham. Don't tell me you think that only the lords of all races will obtain a reward from the Supreme Will in this event. As long as we, the kingdoms and empires who participated, perform well in this tribulation of all races, we will also obtain the reward of the Supreme Will. Elizariel replied smilingly. I see. Zhou was enlightened. No wonder he did not see any resentment on the faces of the people from the Night Empire and the Elven Empire when facing lords of all races like them. After all, according to the event introduction, even though the Crimson Overlord looked down on them, the sudden attack of endless Scarlet factions was more or less related to them. He was really not surprised if these Kingdom factions and Empire factions were resentful towards them because of this. However, he did not see any resentment on their faces after arriving at the Night Empire and the Elven Empire. Previously, he thought that it was because the other party did not understand the reason why the Scarlet faction was attacking. He finally understood. It turned out that they could also obtain benefits that belonged to them in this calamity. After that, he told Elizariel about letting his lords join the Elven Empire. Elizariel agreed readily. Then, Zhou thought for a moment and told him that he had also accepted a faction quest from the Night Empire. The Night Empire's faction quest is very difficult, which is why I want to ask for your help. This help can be treated as a reward paid in advance. If you think I might not be able to complete the faction quest you gave me, I can also use mist cores to hire the experts of the Elven Empire to help us pass this mission. I wonder if your majesty is willing. Zhou boldly voiced his request. Chapter 600 The God of the Snowfield and White Wolf, Zhe Wu. Zhou looked at the Elven Empress. Zhou was confident that he could complete the Night Empire's faction quest because of some trump cards. However, he was not confident that he could complete it without any accidents. Now that there was such a chance to ask for help, he naturally would not give up. You want to make an advance for the reward before completing the quest I gave you. The Elven Empress looked at Zhou with no sign of anger. Aren't you quite thick-skinned? Zhou's expression did not change at all. So what if he was mocked? The most important thing was to reduce the losses of the soldiers and increase the benefits they obtained. I won't give you the faction quest reward in advance. However, you can invite the experts of our Elven Empire if you have enough mist cores. How many you can hire will depend on your ability. The Elven Empress said calmly. Even so, she did not think that the other party could invite many Elven experts. A lord faction of all races that had just arrived in the High Continent and developed for less than a month. No matter how well he developed, how many mist cores could he save up? He would probably be overstretched after hiring 1 or 2 experts. Zhou was overjoyed. What he wanted was the Empress' permission, without which, the experts of the Elven Empire might not even let him in. Not to mention inviting him to do the faction quests. Thank you, Your Majesty. Zhou immediately said. The Elven Empress nodded and waved her hand. Zhou understood and left. In a temporarily arranged palace. When Zhou was led here by Ali, he saw Qi Xiantian, Suan, and the Lords of the Star Alliance. Other than that, he also saw an old friend. It was the first-generation blood fire arrow elf, Nadia. Zhou looked at her in surprise. His Majesty called me over. From today onwards, I will follow you as an assistant until the tribulation of all races ends. At the same time, I will be in charge of being your liaison with Her Majesty. You can tell me your needs when you're preparing to take on the faction quests. I'll help you if I can. If I can't, I can also contact Her Majesty directly and see if she can help. Nadia smiled. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly, looking a little impish. Are you that close? Zhou was delighted. He was just worried about not knowing which elven expert to start looking for. It was much easier for him to find them with Nadia around. Do you know where the god-tier experts who serve the Elven Empire live? Especially those who are free now. Zhou immediately asked. I know. Nadia was stunned for a moment before nodding. As a hero of the Elven Empire, she was quite liked by the Empress, so she knew such things. Currently, there are only 2 god-tier experts who have not been sent out by Her Majesty and are still resting in the Elven Empire. One is Lord Zhe Wu, god of the Snowfield and White Wolf, a mid-level god-tier elementary grade expert. The other is Lord Heras, the god of blazing sun and burns, a high-level god-tier elementary grade expert. They are all resting in their shrines. However, the shrines are in the deepest part of the imperial palace. God spirits usually don't come out. Even if we go over, I'm afraid the god attendants in charge of guarding won't let us pass easily. Nadia looked hesitant and ashamed. She had just said that she wanted to help, but she did not expect herself to be a little powerless now. However, there was no choice. God spirits were also revered existences in the Elven Empire. Even the Elven Empress had to be polite to the weakest low-tier deity-level god spirits, let alone an ordinary elven hero like her. Don't worry about that. The Empress gave this to me. I should be able to see the two god spirits with this token, right? Zhou Zhou took out the elven holy token and said with a smile. Her Majesty actually gave you this token? Nadia was shocked when she saw the elven holy token in Zhou Zhou's hand. It's also for convenience. Zhou Zhou smiled. Of course you can with this token. Nadia said without hesitation. The effect of the elven holy token in the Elven Empire was almost equivalent to the Empress' personal arrival. Only a minister whom the Empress trusted extremely could have this token in a short period of time. They had to return it after using it too. With it in his hands, Zhou Zhou could almost do whatever he wanted in the Elven Empire. It was naturally simple to see the two god spirits idle at home. It's good to be able to see them. Time is tight. Lead the way now. Zhou Zhou said. Since there were only two god spirits in the Elven capital, he could only try his best to invite these two god spirits over to protect him. As for the price, Zhou Zhou was already prepared. It was guaranteed that the two god spirits would not be able to refuse. At a shrine in the depths of the imperial palace, Zhou Zhou looked at the white towering and majestic building in front of him. He could vaguely feel the coldness like winter from inside. Moreover, there was an existence emitting an extremely huge life aura living inside. This is the shrine of the god of the snowfield and white wolf, Lord Zhe Wu. Nadia said. Zhou Zhou nodded. Then, he walked over and arrived at the entrance of the shrine. Two god attendants wearing snow-white thick cotton clothes with a 2 to 3 meter tall white wolf lying beside them were guarding this place. Zhou Zhou could tell their strength at a glance. Epic tier elementary grade. He raised his eyebrows slightly. This is the power of the Elven Empire's god spirits. An epic tier elementary grade expert is actually used as a gatekeeper. Halt! Don't you know that this is Lord Zhe Wu's shrine? The two god attendants immediately said sternly when they saw Zhou Zhou arrive at the door. Please pass on the message that this junior, the Lord of the Blazing Sun, wishes to see Lord Zhe Wu. I have something to discuss. Zhou Zhou took out the elven holy token and said with a smile. The two god attendants originally wanted to shout at this young man to retreat. Do you think you can see a god spirit just because you want to? However, the two of them were stunned when they saw the golden token in Zhou Zhou's hand. Let me see. The god attendant on his left said coldly. Her attitude was much better than before. Zhou Zhou handed it over. The god attendant took it and flipped through it for a while. Then, she showed it to the other god attendant. When they looked up again, the two of them looked at Zhou Zhou in obvious surprise. It was actually a real elven holy token. What right did this human have to be given this privileged token by the Empress? Lord of the Blazing Sun. Could it be the recently famous human lord? At the thought of this, the two of them looked at each other and immediately understood what the other was thinking. Please follow me, the god attendant on the left said politely. Zhou Zhou nodded and turned to look at Nadia. Wait for me. Sure. Nadia nodded. Zhou Zhou did not say anything else and entered the shrine with the god attendant. Not long after they entered, the other god attendant guarding the door hesitated for a long time before she could not help but ask, was that human lord just now the one who won the strongest lord of all races at the event arranged by the Supreme Will? Exactly. TSK, impressive. I only heard of him in the past. I didn't expect to see him in person today. He's really amazing to be able to obtain the title of the strongest lord of all races from so many powerful lords with the foundation of the human race. The god attendant sighed. Nadia looked at her drastic change in attitude and admired Zhou very much. For some reason, a smile appeared on her face and she felt inexplicably happy. However, when she thought about how he already had Leia, she could not help but feel disappointed. Chapter 601 Condition in the Shrine. The god attendant brought Zhou to an open-air palace. In this palace, a divine wolf that was more than 1,000 meters tall and snow-white with a snowflake divine pattern between its eyebrows was entrenched here. It did not move. However, the divine might naturally released was enough to make countless life forms tremble in fear. At this moment, Zhe Wu raised its wolf head and stared coldly at Zhou with its ice-blue eyes. "Greetings, Lord Zhe Wu." Zhou said, neither servile nor overbearing in the face of the god spirit's direct gaze. Zhe Wu did not say anything. He looked at Zhou and gradually became surprised. This was because the current Zhou clearly only had the strength of an epic tier elementary grade, but he actually gave him a faint sense of threat. It was as if the other party could threaten his life. This intuition made Zhe Wu feel that it was ridiculous. One had to know that he was a mid-level deity tier elementary grade god spirit. Not to mention the epic tier, even a low-tier deity tier expert would not give him this feeling in front of him. However, the human lord in front of him gave him an unbelievable feeling. How could he not be surprised? As a wolf-type god spirit, he had always believed in this intuition. Therefore, he immediately did not dare to underestimate the human lord in front of him. "Lord of the Blazing Sun. You're very interesting. Tell me, why are you here?" The god of the snowfield and white wolf, Zhe Wu said in a low voice. "Then it'll be straightforward. From today onwards, in a month, it will be the King of 10,000 Kings event set by the Supreme Will. I want to ask Lord Zhe Wu to temporarily protect my Blazing Sun Kingdom during this period of time until it officially ends in a month. Of course, I won't let Lord Zhe Wu take action for nothing. I won't disappoint Lord Zhe Wu in terms of remuneration." Zhou said. "Ask me to protect your Blazing Sun Kingdom? Do you know how dangerous the outside world is now? How many scarlet god spirits are eyeing the outside world covetously? Even though I'm a god spirit, I won't be able to do well if I'm surrounded by many scarlet god spirits. I might even die. Moreover, you're a lord who has only been in the High Continent for less than a month. Even if you obtain some rewards from the Supreme Will's event, what treasure can you take out to move a mid-level deity tier expert like me? There's no need to mention the mist cores. I don't need that thing. Do you have divine crystals? Have you heard of divine crystals?" Zhe Wu mocked. "I actually have divine crystals." Under Zhe Wu's stunned gaze, Zhou really took out a mid-level deity tier divine crystals from his king's treasure box. But then he put it away. "However, I think Lord Zhe Wu should like this more." Zhou flipped his right hand. A robe that was completely ice blue and emitted a faint aura of powerful divine power appeared in his hand. Seeing this ice blue robe, Zhe Wu, who had a cold and indifferent expression, immediately stood up as if he had seen an extremely tempted treasure. He looked at the robe with burning greed. "A divine artifact," he said fervently. "Yes. This is a low-tier deity-level elementary grade divine artifact. Its name is the Ice Demon Sacrificial Robe. It should be barely worthy of your attention even though its grade is relatively low." Zhou smiled. This Ice Demon Sacrificial Robe was one of the 6 duplicate divine artifacts that he had dropped when he killed the hero of the Ice Demon Kingdom. As he still had 2 ice demon sacrificial robes in his hands, he did not care much about using them in a transaction. In any case, it was only a low-tier deity-level divine artifact. A large number of legendary tier enemies could be dropped. On this high continent, there were indeed very few god spirits. However, were there not many legendary tier experts? There must be a lot. Therefore, he did not feel that it was a pity at all. However, in Wu's eyes, this divine artifact was exceptionally precious. In the myriad worlds, other than a very small number of divine artifacts that were naturally nurtured, most of the other divine artifacts were forged by god-tier divine artifact forgers. How rare were divine artifact forgers? They were simply like giant pandas among god spirits. They could only be chanced upon by luck. Therefore, it was extremely difficult for god spirits to obtain divine artifacts. Most god spirits usually only had 3 ways to obtain divine artifacts. One way would be a god spirit with an inheritance relationship between the same pantheon who inherited their respective divine artifacts. The second was to use the power of faith and divine power to temper a certain divine artifact embryo for a long time. After a long period of tempering, there was a chance of creating a divine artifact. The last method was much simpler. That was to kill a god spirit to snatch its divine artifact. Other than that, they could only rely on luck or some special methods. Wu was luckier. The white wolf race that he was from had once given birth to a white wolf god which became a god through faith a long time ago. The other party had used the power of faith and divine power to condense a divine artifact, white wolf tooth. After thousands of years, this divine artifact had only been upgraded to low-level deity tier advanced grade. Poor he. As a mid-level deity tier elementary grade god spirit, if word got out that he only had a low-level deity tier advanced grade divine artifact, living beings who did not know better might feel that this god of white wolf was doing too badly. However, if the other god spirits knew about this, they would probably feel that the god of white wolf was really lucky and wish they could replace him. That was why it was so excited when it saw this low-level deity tier elementary grade divine artifact. What to do? Another low-level divine artifact would directly increase his strength by at least 30% to him, who only had one low-level divine artifact to him. Moreover, this was an ice element robe-type divine artifact. There was a high chance that it was a defensive divine artifact with ice stats. If he could have it, he would no longer have any shortcomings in attack and defense. It was not an exaggeration to say that his strength would double. He might even be able to pry into the method to increase his ice stats law skill from this ice element divine artifact. You plan to give me this divine artifact in exchange for me protecting your kingdom for a month? Wu licked his lips and said. Yes. Zhou nodded. Deal. Wu said without hesitation. Zhou muttered in his heart. It seemed that he had suffered a loss. Perhaps the other party would most likely agree if he used divine crystals to trade. However, Zhou did not lack divine artifacts. What he lacked was the common currency among god spirits, divine crystals. Therefore, he did not feel that he had suffered a loss. Let me tell you in advance. I won't risk my life for your blazing sun kingdom if I encounter danger that I can't resist. Wu added. Sure. Then I have a condition too. How about handing over the corpses of the enemies you killed to us? Zhou said. Wu hesitated. However, thinking about what he had just said, he might feel that he had taken advantage of him, so he nodded and agreed. Wu, I can obtain a low-level deity tier divine artifact by protecting a kingdom for a month. I've made a killing. Zhou, I made a killing by using an extra and useless low-level deity tier elementary grade divine artifact in exchange for a mid-level deity tier god spirit to protect me through the faction quests. The man and the god looked up at each other at the same time and smiled awkwardly, feeling a little guilty. Chapter 602 God of Blazing Sun and Burns. Heraus, after bidding farewell to the god of the snowfield and white wolf, Zhe Wu, Zhou Zhou and Nadia headed to the shrine of the god of blazing sun and burns, Lord Heraus. Why are you looking for these two god spirits? You don't have to tell me if it's inconvenient. Nadia asked curiously. There's nothing I can't tell you. Aren't we doing faction quests? I want to get some help. Zhou Zhou smiled and said. How did it go? I heard that it's very difficult for either Lord Zhe Wu or Lord Heraus, whom we're going to look for next, to ask them to take action. Those two god spirits might not do anything even if Her Majesty comes personally. Zhou Zhou clicked his tongue in wonder. However, he was not very surprised. They were all god spirits after all. It was normal for them to like freedom and not listen to orders. Still. They don't even listen to you, but you still recruit them and give them offerings? Zhou Zhou asked curiously. Our Elven Empire has more than a dozen god spirits protecting our empire. Some of these god spirits were invited by us at a huge price. They are naturally willing to listen to Her Majesty's orders and serve the Elven Empire. They are even willing to do some dangerous things. However, there are also god spirits that we invited at a very small price to guard our Elven Empire. They are equivalent to a sex guest elder. These god spirits don't have a very strong sense of belonging to our Elven Empire, and we didn't invest too many resources in them. Therefore, they are relatively free and don't have to completely listen to our orders. Nadia explained. This information was not a secret in the Elven Empire. Or rather, every empire used this method to rope in god spirits, so it did not matter even if it was disclosed to Zhou Zhou. Zhou Zhou came to a realization. No wonder these two god spirits were so carefree. He had learnt that he could completely do the same in the future and let the Blazing Sun Kingdom have more experts when he became rich and imposing. It was good to have more deterrence even if they did not take action. They arrived at the shrine of the god of blazing sun and burns, Lord Heraus. Zhou Zhou looked at the shrine in front of him. This shrine also looked quite majestic, much larger than the shrine of the god of the snowfield and white wolf. It was completely scarlet and there was a huge sun standing at the top of the shrine, burning with raging scarlet flames, transmitting terrifying heat in all directions. However, it would automatically disappear after reaching a certain border, looking very magical. I'm going then. Zhou Zhou said to Nadia. Zhou Zhou nodded. Then, he came to the front of the shrine and also entered through the Elven Holy Token. He met the god of blazing sun and burns, Heraus. The god of blazing sun and burns, Heraus' main body was a fire elemental creature. It had no fixed form. When Zhou Zhou saw him, he only saw a ball of scarlet flames floating in the sky, emitting an uncomfortable and terrifying heat. If ordinary Diamond Tier experts came here, they would probably be burned by the heat with divine power and lose all the moisture in their bodies before dying. Fortunately, Zhou Zhou's constitution was also extremely strong, allowing him to ignore such terrifying flames. This surprised Heraus, who had wanted to see Zhou Zhou make a fool of himself. Then, Zhou Zhou said the same thing as when he faced Zhe Wu. However, Zhou Zhou had made changes to the price of inviting God. Zhou Zhou walked out of the shrine. Nadia, who was waiting for Zhou Zhou, immediately walked over. Why are you out so quickly? Nadia said in surprise. Then, she thought of something and hesitated for a moment before comforting her. It doesn't matter if it fails. I know some heroes of the legendary tier Elven Empire. Their combat strengths are not inferior to a low-level deity tier expert. I'll invite a few more people and they should be able to help you complete your faction mission. Thank you, but no since, he agreed. Zhou Zhou laughed. How did you invite him? Nadia's eyes widened. He could actually do something that even Her Majesty could not do. Zhou Zhou smiled and did not say anything. This time, he did not pay any divine artifacts or divine crystals. Instead, he took out a Holy Spirit Tier Faith Divine Crystal. Originally, he wanted to use this resurrection opportunity to ask this high-level deity tier expert to protect the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Even though, given the shelter of the Goddess of Lives level, it could only revive life forms below the legendary tier elementary grade. However, the other party might also be tempted and agree to his request. If it really didn't work, Zhou even planned to take out divine crystals to trade. This was a high-level deity tier existence after all. If he was by his side, he could definitely safely complete the Night Empire's faction quests. Who would have thought that as soon as he took out the Holy Spirit Tier Faith Divine Crystal, the other party's gaze landed on it and stopped moving. Zhou's sixth senses was astonishing, and he was also smart. He directly changed his words and used a Holy Spirit Tier Faith Divine Crystal to ask the other party to protect the Blazing Sun Kingdom for a month. During this period, he had to help him complete the faction quests. He did not expect the other party to agree without hesitation. Whether it's the god of death or the other god spirits, they're so passionate about the faith divine crystals. They seem to value the path of faith to godhood very much, Zhou pondered silently. In the future, there was a high chance that he would also walk the path of faith becoming a god. Because everyone knew that the Lord Talents of the Blessing of the 10 gods represented the 10 Master God tier experts. They were also the 10 strongest Master God tier experts in the High Continent and even the Endless Heavens. Almost all of them walked both the path of faith and law to becoming a god. This was one of the important reasons why they were so powerful. So, he would also take both the path of faith and the path of law to become a god. This way, he would not be weaker than other god spirits when he grew up. On the other side, Nadia obediently did not ask further, seeing that Zhou did not answer. The two of them walked all the way to the residence of the Star Alliance Master. Under the throne. Your Majesty, I just received news that the god of the Snowfield and White Wolf, Lord Zhe Wu, and the god of Blazing Sun and Burns, Lord Heras, have already agreed to the King of the Blazing Sun's request to travel with him and assist him in completing his faction quests in this month. A mysterious life form in a black robe that covered her entire body said to Elizariel, the Elven Empress, who was sitting upright on the throne. They actually agree to that kid's request. Elizariel's beautiful eyebrows immediately curled up slightly. I've invited them so many times, but they're unwilling to help. Why would they agree with their lazy nature? Elizariel was puzzled. The god of the Snowfield and White Wolf did reveal some information. It's because the King of the Blazing Sun took out a low-level deity tier elementary grade divine artifact that he couldn't refuse. As for Lord Heras, he didn't reveal the specific content of the conversation, so I don't know for the time being. The life form in black whispered. Low-level deity tier divine artifact. Where did that kid get so many treasures? Rewards from the Supreme Will. Divine artifacts. There were not many of them even in their Elven Empire. Elizariel narrowed her eyes slightly. Chapter 603 The Terrifying Tribulation of All Races. I thought him already expecting a lot from him. I didn't expect this guy to still exceed my expectations. Elizariel muttered to herself. She had thought that the other party could at most recruit some epic tier and legendary tier experts in the Elven Empire. Anyone better would be epic tier and legendary tier heroes. Even though such an existence was considered the mainstay of the Elven Empire and even the top combat strength, she would not care too much if he recruited some in a short period of time on account that he would help her complete the faction quests. But he had taken away the only 2 god spirits in her capital. She found it hard to accept this. She was still thinking of leaving these 2 god spirits to guard her capital. Now this is timely, they found the opportunity to run away. As for the true god tier in the sky, even though he had already agreed to be a guardian of the Elven Empire, however, there were conditions. She could not easily drive him to do anything before completing these conditions. Your Majesty. It's all thanks to the elven holy token that your Majesty lent him that the other party was able to recruit successfully this time. Otherwise, he probably won't even be able to enter the shrines. The mysterious life form in black also told this news to Elizariel, adhering to the principle of dutifulness. Elizariel was speechless. What a sin! She was filled with regret. If she had known earlier, she wouldn't have given it to him. After Zhou Zhou met up with his subordinates and lords, he returned to the Blazing Sun Kingdom and brought 20 million soldiers to do the faction quests. The remaining 3 million soldiers stayed behind to protect the Lord's territory of the Blazing Sun Kingdom and the Star Alliance. Outside the borders of the Night Empire. In the captain's room of the Starry Night. Zhou Zhou looked at the map in his hand. This map was given to him by the Night Empire before he left. It depicted very detailed terrain information. Especially on the map between the Night Empire and the Divine Sword Empire, it was extremely detailed. There was even the latest distribution of the Scarlet Forces. Zhou Zhou was quite satisfied with this. He felt much more confident about the upcoming mission. According to the map, the spatial teleportation array closest to us is about 10 million kilometers southeast. With the speed of the Starry Night, we can arrive in less than 10 minutes if we fly at full speed. Zhou Zhou put away the map and waited quietly. 8 minutes later, Zhou Zhou felt the spaceship stop. A virtual screen appeared in front of him. A silver incomplete array square covering a radius of 10 kilometers was laid on the ground. Around 40,000 to 50,000 strange scarlet monsters with eagle heads and cow bodies were guarding this place. Most of their strength was below the white platinum tier. Only a small number of scarlet monsters had reached the diamond tier and extraordinary tier. However, at this moment, they looked a little lazy, as if they were unwilling to guard this array formation. Zhou Zhou carefully used the life detection radar function of the spaceship to look around. After discovering that there was no ambush, he gave the orders through the army interface. The next second, a starry night appeared and opened its hatch. A total of 500,000 Blazing Sun Army soldiers jumped down from the hatch on the wings of the Fear Falcon. Then, they pounced on the 40,000 to 50,000 scarlet monsters below at an extremely fast speed. With such a huge difference in strength and military strength, the outcome was naturally without suspense. In less than 20 seconds, the Blazing Sun Army wiped out the other party and won with 0 injuries and 0 sacrifices. The ownership of this extraordinary tier advanced grade spatial teleportation array had also successfully transferred to the Blazing Sun Army. After confirming that their surroundings were safe, Zhou Zhou ordered the spaceship to fly down and land on the spatial teleportation array. He looked at the damaged spatial teleportation array in front of him and frowned slightly. Then, he called a soldier over. Let the spatial teleportation array maintenance team come over, this spatial teleportation array needs repairs. He said. The soldier immediately received the order and left. 1,000 spatial teleportation array maintenance team quickly walked over. The other spatial teleportation array maintenance team began to repair on the spot. The spatial teleportation array maintenance team in the lead came in front of Zhou Zhou. Third Lord of the Spiritual Array Tower, Yu Huan greets His Majesty, the King of the Blazing Sun. Yu Huan was a middle-aged male elf. He looked mature and had a strong body. He wore a white army uniform with blue trimmings and looked like a military. How long will it take to repair this array formation? Zhou Zhou asked directly. It's just an extraordinary tier advanced grade spatial teleportation array. Well, repair it with all our might. It can be repaired in less than 5 minutes. Yu Huan said confidently. He was a low-level deity tier advanced grade spatial teleportation array maintenance officer. He did not need to do anything at all for such a low-level array formation to be repaired by the disciples he brought. It would not be too late for him to repair the spatial teleportation array of the legendary tier advanced grade when it was necessary. Zhou Zhou nodded. 5 minutes was really not long. Tell the soldiers to guard their surroundings. Once an enemy approaches, there's no need to report. Just destroy them. Zhou Zhou instructed Bai Yun. Yes, Your Majesty. Bai Yun said respectfully and went to make arrangements. Zhou Zhou was about to wait for a while when he saw more than 100,000 scarlet monsters with eagle heads and cow bodies suddenly run over from afar and rush towards the spatial teleportation array. However, before they could approach, they were destroyed by Bai Yun's troops. What happened next was beyond Zhou Zhou's expectations. In the next 5 minutes, 3 more waves of scarlet monsters, totaling about 200,000, rushed over, wanting to destroy them and take back the spatial teleportation array. Fortunately, their average strength was not high and they were easily repelled by Bai Yun. But even so, it also made Zhou Zhou feel the horror of this calamity. Scarlet monsters were everywhere. There were so many fog monsters that even Zhou Zhou, who was used to seeing them, felt that it was a little ridiculous. Normally speaking, 200,000 fog monsters could occupy a yellow gold tier regional territory. This was only a separate extraordinary tier advanced grade spatial teleportation array. And yet so many fog monsters actually gathered. What about the other important places? Wouldn't that be even more terrifying? While he was thinking, Yu Huan's disciples had already repaired this spatial teleportation array. Right on the heels of that, the spatial teleportation array flashed with silver light. A total of 200,000 knights with neat military equipment appeared on the spatial teleportation array. From now on, this spatial teleportation array will be taken over by the Knight Empire's Han Wu Cavalryman Legion. Thank you for your contribution, King of the Blazing Sun. The Legion commander of the Han Wu Cavalryman Legion walked over and thanked Zhou Zhou. A quest notification appeared. Faction quests hint, you have successfully snatched back 1 extraordinary tier advanced grade spatial teleportation array. Reward, 100,000 faction points. Currently, you have snatched back 1/114 extraordinary tier advanced grade spatial teleportation arrays. There's still a long way to go. Zhou Zhou lamented. Fortunately, this mission was long and he was not in a hurry. He did not chat much with this Legion commander. Seeing that they were busy setting up the defensive teleportation array, he led his troops and left. Time passed and in the blink of an eye, it was already night. Zhou Zhou, who had snatched back another extraordinary tier advanced grade spatial teleportation array, opened the faction quests notification and looked at it. Faction quests hint, you have successfully recaptured 46 extraordinary tier advanced grade spatial teleportation arrays. Reward, 6 million faction points. Currently, you have recaptured 46/114 extraordinary tier advanced grade spatial teleportation arrays. Faction quests hint, you have successfully recaptured 2 epic tier advanced grade spatial teleportation arrays. Reward, 5 million faction points. Currently, you have recaptured 2/26 epic tier advanced grade spatial teleportation arrays. Even though we're quite efficient, we still have to speed up tomorrow. Who knows when the God War ruin in the Elven Empire will begin? I have to rush over immediately once the ruin is activated. Zhou Zhou thought. Chapter 604 Diamond Tier Lord Talent, Wisdom Master God's Blessing. Zhou Zhou looked at the quest's information in front of him and recalled his experience today. Today, they had snatched back a total of 48 spatial teleportation arrays. On average, an extraordinary tier advanced grade spatial teleportation array had between 200,000 and 400,000 fog monsters stationed around them. The only 2 epic tier spatial teleportation arrays were even more terrifying. One of them was guarded by 2 million fog monsters while the other one had a total of 4 million fog monsters stationed around it. Even though Zhou Zhou's soldiers still easily destroyed it, it still left a deep impression on him. Other than that, it was not like he had not obtained any benefits. Putting aside the loots and promotion energy, the monsters resulting from their insight defection alone were a huge gain today. Among them, Zhou Zhou had used his insight defection on the 4 million fog monsters in the Epic Tier Advanced Grade Spatial Teleportation Array. He had directly obtained 480,000 Scarlet Monster troops. As for the other lords of the Star Alliance, they had also used insight defection and obtained many fog monsters. It could be said that they had gained a lot. After that, they did not stay any longer. They used this already activated spatial teleportation array to return to the Night Empire and then teleported back to the Blazing Sun Kingdom. In the Blazing Sun Kingdom, Zhou Zhou looked at the list of loots in his hand. Today, they had eliminated a total of 4 million fog monsters. There was no lack of extraordinary tier and even other epic tier fog monsters. With the enhancement of the King of Loots and the title of the Strongest Lord, he obtained a total of these loots: 450 legendary tier mist cores, 41,200 epic tier mist cores, 1,551,200 extraordinary tier mist cores, 8,005,000 diamond tier mist cores, 24,323,000 white platinum tier mist cores, 55,502,400 yellow gold tier mist cores, 104,875 white silver tier mist cores, 189,002,425 green bronze tier mist cores. There were 21,359,600 skill books and 302,401,050 equipment, 280 billion units of basic materials, 13,100 green bronze tier Lord Talent crystal fragments, 1 diamond tier Scarlet Lord Talent sphere and 5 Holy Spirit tier Faith Divine crystals. In addition, in terms of the increase in the combat strength of the soldiers, after today's series of battles, the total military strength under Zhou Zhou had also increased again. Other than his own insight defection's 480,000 fog monster troops, the 20% of the insight defection troops handed over to him by the Lord members of the Star Alliance amounted to a total of 233,040 fog monster troops. In total, there were 713,040 fog monsters. Among them, there were 2,088,824 black iron tier soldiers, 1,951,822 green bronze tier soldiers, 3,291,882 while silver tier soldiers, 3,591,506 yellow gold tier soldiers, 2,592,230 white platinum tier soldiers, 1,145,01 diamond tier soldiers, 26,500 extraordinary tier soldiers and 21 epic tier soldiers. In addition, the original spirit race, Ansel had broken through to diamond tier elementary grade. The Dragon King of War and Strength, Horus, former extreme dragon race lord, had broken through to the diamond tier advanced grade. Soul Arrow, Wu Tu had broken through to extraordinary tier elementary grade. The Ghost God General, Luo Sheng had broken through to the epic tier elementary grade. The other new heroes who had just joined the Blazing Sun Kingdom had also increased their strength greatly. Zhou Zhou looked at the loots and nodded in satisfaction. Now, with the 32 million troops under his command and controlled by the Star Alliance, his total military strength had reached 25 million. If I want to complete the faction quests this time, I will face a large number of fog monsters every day. I can upgrade the insight defection. Zhou Zhou pondered. After upgrading insight defection, he would increase the level of the Lord's insight defection. This way, he would have more new troops every day. However, there was no hurry. He turned his attention to the diamond tier Scarlet Lord Talent sphere he had obtained in today's battle. Zhou Zhou looked at the diamond tier Scarlet Lord Talent sphere with burning eyes. It held a diamond tier Lord Talent. If used well, he could be treated as a cheat. He no longer hesitated and focused on it. A text notification appeared. Do you want to purify it? Purify. Zhou Zhou said expectantly. The next second, a golden light flashed on the Scarlet Lord Talent sphere. After the golden light disappeared, its message also changed. Treasure name, Blessing of the 10 Gods, Wisdom Master God's Blessing, Treasure grade, Diamond tier, Treasure effect, after absorbing it, the Lord will have the Diamond tier Lord talent, Blessing of the 10 Gods, Wisdom Master God's Blessing. Treasure description, a Lord talent sphere purified by the Supreme Will. After absorbing it, you can obtain a Diamond tier Lord talent. It's actually a Lord talent from the Blessing of the 10 God series. Zhou Zhou was a little surprised. He did not expect it to be this Lord talent. He could already feel how abnormal the Blessing of the War God's Lord talent was. It could be said that the reason why his Blazing Sun Kingdom could have today's achievements was because of this Lord talent of the Blessing of the 10 God series. He wondered how effective this new Lord talent of the Blessing of the 10 God series would be. But soon, Zhou Zhou remembered something. It seemed like there was a Lord talent holder with the Wisdom Master God's Blessing in the Military Industry Alliance of the Military Industry Lord. With this Lord talent, the other party was very popular in researching cerulean planet weapons. Could it be that this Lord talent was related to researching weapons? He thought for a moment and another bold idea appeared in his mind. I wonder if I can gather all the Blessing of the 10 Gods Lord talents in the future. Perhaps there will be some new changes if all of them are gathered. He muttered. Then, he shook his head and gave up on this idea. Even though the Blessing of the 10 Gods Lord talent was not rare, it was not easy to chance upon them either. If he wanted to gather these 10 Lord talents, he had to be extremely lucky or slaughter a large number of lords. The former was too illusory. If he wanted to do the latter, he had to take his time. He stopped thinking about it and looked at the Lord talent sphere again. The text notification appeared again. Do you want to absorb this Lord talent sphere, Diamond tier? Yes. Zhou Zhou said. The next second. This Diamond tier Lord talent sphere immediately turned into countless diamond-colored light spots and surged into his glabella. Zhou Zhou closed his eyes. He reopened his eyes again after some time. Then, he immediately opened his Lord's personal information. His Lord talent column had already been updated. Lord talents, King of Loots, Mythical tier. Unique, Gnome Alchemy Workshop, Monster Ranch, Yellow Gold tier, Insight Defection, Yellow Gold tier, Peace and Prosperity, Diamond tier, Return to the City, White Silver tier, Mysterious Caravan, Yellow Gold tier, Master Thief's Robbery Gloves, Legendary tier, Blessing of the 10 Gods, Blessing of the War God, Epic tier, The Shelter of the Goddess of Life, Diamond tier, Night Temple, Extraordinary tier, Dragon Slaying Hometown, White Platinum tier, Gift of the Machina, White Silver tier, Embrace of the Conqueror, White Silver tier, Fighting God Full-Time Master 2, Lord Shop, Mythical tier. Unique, Scavenger, Sturdy Constitution, Agricultural Kingdom, Extraordinary tier, Ultimate Algorithm, Mythical tier, Unique, King's Treasure Box, Extraordinary tier, Talent Intuition, Epic tier, Peach Luck, Beauty, Blessing of the 10 Gods, Wisdom Master God's Blessing, Diamond tier. Chapter 605 Terrifying Extraordinary tier Insight Defection. My 25th Lord Talent. Zhou Zhou nodded. Then, he immediately opened the details of the talent. Lord Talent, Blessing of the 10 Gods, Wisdom Master God's Blessing, Diamond, tier, Blessing of the 10 Gods, Wisdom Master God's Blessing, the Wisdom Master God's Blessing of one of the 10 Master Gods under the Supreme Will. The Wisdom Master God has blessed you and your wisdom-related professionals. When you and your wisdom-related professionals carry out wisdom-related professional actions, you will receive an additional 4,000% promotion energy. There is also a chance of obtaining more wisdom and inspiration when carrying out wisdom creation-related actions. Zhou Zhou looked at this Lord talent in surprise. I see. No wonder the Lord in the Military Industry Lord Alliance is good at developing cerulean planet arms. It turns out that the professionals under him have all been enhanced in terms of intelligence. Moreover, The range of intelligent professionals is quite large. Many lifestyle professionals can be considered intelligent professionals. Archaeologists, mathematicians, physicists, chemists, and biologists on the cerulean planet were all intelligent professionals. Extraordinary tier combat classes such as mages, arcanists, and mysticists in the high continent can also be considered intelligent professionals. Tisk. The more Zhou Zhou thought about it, the more he felt that this Lord Talent was terrifying. In the future, the professionals in his territory would definitely start to rapidly increase their lifestyle professionals levels until they reached the limit of their potential. At the thought of this, a smile appeared on Zhou Zhou's face. Even though there were many high-level lifestyle professionals in his territory, they were still inferior to the national lord factions that had existed for hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of years. After all, his development time was too short. However, with this Lord Talent, he at least had the qualifications to catch up to them. In addition, he could also plunder the lifestyle professionals of the enemy country through war. In the long run it was not impossible for him to catch up to or even surpass those empire-level lord factions with deep foundations. As for comparing him to the lord of the cerulean planet, with his current level of development, if he still wanted to compete with the lords of the cerulean planet, he would be too narrow-minded. Under the cleansing of the first two events, Zhou Zhou's current goal was to be the strongest lords of the myriad races, including even the powerful local lord factions that had existed for thousands of years. The Night Empire, the Elven Empire, and even the High and Mighty Empire Kingdom. That was the target he was chasing. This was not arrogance. Instead, he was confident and prepared for the worst. Then, Zhou Zhou did not think too much about it. He took out 10 white platinum tier Lord Talent crystal fragments and fused them into a white platinum tier Lord Talent origin divine crystals. Then, he chose to use them. A text notification appeared. As you have 3 yellow gold tier Lord Talents, Monster Ranch, Insight Defection, and Mysterious Caravan, please choose one to level up. I choose to advance to Insight Defection. Zhou Zhou said without hesitation. The other yellow gold tier Lord Talents were also very good. However, for now, it was best to increase the effect of Insight Defection. Therefore, he chose Insight Defection. Even though he still had other white platinum tier Lord Talent crystal fragments that could be used to upgrade Monster Ranch or Mysterious Caravan to the platinum level, he wanted to keep it so that he could raise the blessing of the war god to the legendary tier or even the mythical tier level. Lord Talent has been chosen. Upgrading in progress, the next second. A familiar warm feeling came from between his eyebrows. The warmth faded. A new text notification appeared. Lord Talent upgrade successful. Congratulations, your yellow gold tier Lord Talent, Insight Defection, has been upgraded to white platinum tier Lord Talent, Insight Defection. You have leveled up to white platinum tier Lord Talent effect, Lord Talent, Insight Defection, white platinum tier, Insight Defection, a Lord's exclusive talent. When you fight the enemy Lord's faction head-on, you can activate the Insight Defection talent and make 16% of the enemy Lord's faction your loyal subordinate. Lord Talent Hint 1, the minimum number of enemies you can incite using the Insight Defection is 1 unit, and the maximum number of enemies you can incite using the Insight Defection is 1 million units. The loyalty of the enemies after using Insight Defection will be at least 89 points. Lord Talent Hint 2, currently, the upper limit of the Lord faction level that you can Insight Defection is the mid-level God tier elementary grade Lord faction. This upper limit can grow. Lord Talent Hint 3, this talent can only be activated once a day. Zhou Zhou looked at the white platinum tier Insight Defection information and smiled. The effect of the white platinum tier Insight Defection was not bad. Firstly, the percentage of Insight Defection had increased from 12% to 16%. Secondly, the upper limit of the number of enemies for Insight Defection had increased from 300,000 to 1 million. Finally, the upper limit of the Insight Defection faction directly increased from low-tier deity level elementary grade to mid-tier deity level elementary grade. It was super awesome. He looked at his Lord Talent Crystal fragment and realized that it could continue to level up. Seeing this, he continued to level up without hesitation. However, before that, he first took out 29,000 green bronze tier Lord Talent Crystal fragments, 110 yellow gold tier Lord Talent Crystal fragments, 50 white platinum tier Lord Talent Crystal fragments, and 1 diamond tier Lord Talent Crystal fragment and fused them into a diamond tier Lord Talent Origin Divine Crystals. Then, he upgraded Insight Defection to diamond tier. The probability of Insight Defection increasing again for diamond tier Insight Defection, reaching 20%. Then, he took out another 10 extraordinary tier Lord Talent Crystal fragments and fused them into an extraordinary tier Lord Talent Origin Divine Crystals, upgrading Insight Defection to the extraordinary tier. Lord Talent, Insight Defection, extraordinary tier, Insight Defection, a Lord's exclusive talent. When you fight the enemy Lord's faction head-on, you can activate the Insight Defection talent and make 25% of the enemy Lord's faction your loyal subordinate. Lord Talent Hint 1, the minimum number of enemies you can incite using the Insight Defection is 1 unit, and the maximum number of enemies you can incite using the Insight Defection is 5 million units. The loyalty of the enemies after using Insight Defection will be at least 89 points. Lord Talent Hint 2, currently, the upper limit of the Lord faction level that you can incite defection is the high-level God-tier elementary grade Lord faction. This upper limit can grow. Lord Talent Notification 3, this talent can only be activated twice a day. Lord Talent Notification, this talent cannot be activated twice against the same Lord faction in the same day. What a powerful extraordinary tier Insight Defection. The Insight Defection ratio has actually reached 25%. Doesn't that mean that once I use Insight Defection, the other party will directly send a quarter of their military strength under my command? And the number of times it can be activated every day has increased to 2. Zhou was pleasantly surprised. This was an unprecedented improvement. He did not expect it to increase in the number of times it could be activated at the extraordinary tier. Then, he opened the Lord group and upgraded the Insight Defection level of his Lords to Diamond tier. This was already the limit of his improvement. This way, his Lords would also have a 20% Insight Defection percentage ability when using Insight Defection in the future. This could be said to be a huge improvement for them. Chapter 606 Ranking the Lords were in an uproar when Zhou shared the Diamond tier Insight Defection Lord talent. A large number of comments immediately appeared in the Lord group of the Star Alliance. Your Majesty is awesome. I offer my knees to His Majesty. My subject asked me why I was kneeling and looking at the chat group. Fuck. A 20% Insight Defection ratio. In other words, 1/5 of the enemy will belong to me once I use Insight Defection. So heaven-defying. It's indeed a little ridiculous. It would be a cheat if this was in an alternate world web novel. The title will be Rebirth, I became a king with Insight Defection in an alternate world. I want your title. I'll start writing novels now. I welcome everyone to subscribe to my latest novel chapters at my trading table. Awesome. I really want to give it a try. Unfortunately, it's dark. This scarlet fog really makes me feel uncomfortable. This Lord talent is too heaven-defying. I feel that it's not inferior to the legendary tier Lord talent. You're too narrow-minded. If you know how strong a true legendary tier Lord talent is, you'll know that even though this Lord talent is diamond tier, it's still reasonable. Think about His Majesty's blessing of the War Master God tier. Do you understand? Now that you mention it, I suddenly feel that diamond tier makes sense. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. No, I can't sleep anymore. I'm so excited that I won't be able to sleep tonight. Ahem, everyone, pay attention to your image. We're just lifestyle lords. Yes, lifestyle lords, laughing. Hold tight to His Majesty's thigh. I knew that following His Majesty was the right choice back then. Zhou Zhou looked at the lords chat in the chat group and smiled without saying anything. Actually, he was also looking forward to tomorrow. With his extraordinary tier insight defection and the diamond tier insight defection of the Star Alliance, his new military strength every day would begin to increase explosively in the future. Perhaps he could deal with all the scarlet monsters surrounding the entire Night Empire alone. Of course, this goal was too far away. He had to take it slow. Then, he looked at the Lord Talent Crystal fragment he had. After the consumption just now, he still had 55,542 Black Iron Tier Lord Talent Crystal fragments. 13,617 Green Bronze Tier Lord Talent Crystal fragments. 279 White Silver Tier Lord Talent Crystal fragments. 165 Yellow Gold Tier Lord Talent Crystal fragments. 1 Diamond Tier Lord Talent Crystal fragment. 8 Extraordinary Tier Lord Talent Crystal fragments. 9 Epic Tier Lord Talent Crystal fragments. 2 Legendary Tier Lord Talent Crystal fragments. 6 Mythical Tier Unique Lord Talent Crystal fragments. There are too few high-level Lord Talent Crystal fragments. Otherwise, I can completely upgrade my Insight Defection to the Epic tier or upgrade the Blessing of the War God to the Legendary tier. Zhou Zhou thought regretfully. However, even though he was regretful, he was not too disappointed. This was because there was a huge number of lords, local lords, and scarlet lords participating in the King of 10,000 Kings event in front of him. This was dangerous, but it was also an opportunity for him to obtain a large number of Lord Talent Crystal fragments or even a new Lord Talent. Just like today. He had obtained 13,100 Green Bronze Tier Lord Talent Crystal fragments and 1 Diamond Tier Lord Talent. After he increased his strength, he could completely obtain more and better Lord Talent Crystal fragments and Lord Talents. Thinking of this, Zhou Zhou looked forward to it even more. And the consequence was that he was experiencing insomnia. He took a deep breath and opened the function icon of the King of 10,000 Kings. Then, he clicked on the Kingdom/Empire Faction Points ranking, inside. 2 rankings appeared in front of him. They were the Night Empire's rankings and the Elven Empire's rankings. Zhou Zhou first looked at the Night Empire's rankings. Night Empire Faction Points rankings. First place, Blazing Sun Kingdom, Lord of the Blazing Sun, 1 million faction points. Second place, Green Phoenix City, Green Phoenix Lord, 102,000 faction points. Third place, Spiritual Medicine City, Spiritual Medicine Lord, 98,400 faction points. Fourth place, Paper Immortal City, Paper Immortal Lord, 43,500 faction points. Zhou Zhou's expression did not change. This ranking was also within his expectations. He had accepted the Night Empire's only legendary tier advance grade quests after all. It would be strange if his faction points could not be ranked first under such circumstances. As for the remaining people from the 2nd place to the 26th place, they were all occupied by the lords of his Star Alliance. They had also received their legendary tier advance grade assistance quests after all. It was more than enough to help them enter the rankings. Then, he opened the Night Empire Camp channel, and took a rough look. In the end, he realized that there were already more than 200,000 lords of all races gathered in the Night Empire faction channel. Among them were the Dragon Race Lord, the Spirit Nether Race Lord, the Goat Head Race Lord, and the Radiant Light Race Lord. The lords of all races looked at Zhou Zhou in a dazzling manner. Of course, there were also human lords and even Cerulean Planet's human lords. And there were many of them. This was because the Supreme Will did not arrange the initial territory of the lords of all races randomly. It was often arranged according to the principle of the proximity of the races. For example, the lords of the Cerulean Planet would definitely be close to a local lord faction. For example, Zhou Zhou's initial territory was close to the Aurora Kingdom. The other lords of all races were the same. Speaking of which, perhaps it was because they were both human lords, so at that moment, they were all publicizing on the camp channel that the Lord of the Blazing Sun had reached the top of the rankings. Even though they were not the ones who reached the top. However, as humans, they also felt honored when they saw the Lord of the Blazing Sun reach the top. Otherwise, even the Night Empire would probably not feel good if the human Night Empire's camp was reached by a lord of the people of foreign race. So many lords of all races joined on the first day. In a few days, more lords of all races should join the Night Empire. They should make the Night Empire's situation better. Zhou Zhou pondered. However, even so, he could not rely on them to save the Night Empire. They had only developed for a short period of time after all. They had few soldiers under their command and were weak. No matter how many lords there were, they could only be cannon fodder on the current battlefield. The power of cannon fodder could only relieve the situation and not determine the outcome of the battle. In the end, Zhou Zhou looked at the fanatical comments praising him on the camp channel and smiled. Then, he closed the camp channel and opened the Elven Empire's faction points rankings. Elven Empire faction points ranking, first place, Underground King City, Dark Emperor Lord, 54,000 faction points. Second place, Light God City, Light Envoy Lord, 49,000 faction points. Third place, Nature City, Lord of Harmony, 38,800 faction points. Fourth place, Winterfrost City, Lord of Winterfrost, 15,000 faction points. Chapter 607 Method to break out of the situation. Illusionary Heavenly Fate. Zhou Zhou looked at the rankings. He was naturally not at the top of this ranking. He had yet to complete the faction quests of the Elven Empire after all. His faction points were still 0. However, he didn't do both since this King of 10,000 Kings event would last for a month. He would be a true hero only by having the last laugh. He was confident that he could quickly break through the rankings when his Elven Empire faction quests began. Zhou Zhou opened the Lord of All Races faction points ranking, and looked at it. Myriad Races Lord faction points ranking, first place, Original Spirit Race, True Lord, 15,405,100 faction points. Second place, Shepherd's God Race, Heaven Chasing Lord, 14,456,000 faction points. Third place, Chaos Divine City, Great One Lord, 13,206,000 faction points. Fourth place, Myriad Spirit Race, Spiritual Venerable Lord, 12,601,000 faction points. 19th, Human Race, the Lord of the Blazing Sun, 6,100,000 faction points. Zhou Zhou's expression froze. He had only reached 19th place. He originally thought that he could enter the top 5 of the myriad races with his advantage. He did not expect to not even enter the top 10. He frowned and thought for a while. Then, his expression became serious. Is this because of the racial foundation by the strongest races? Zhou Zhou muttered to himself. He could rely on his relationship with the humans and elves to obtain the strongest faction quests of these two lineups. These top-notch races had developed for countless years and accumulated countless connections and resources from national-level lord factions. With these connections, it was too easy for them to obtain a large number of faction quests. He only had the faction quests of the two strongest empire factions. The other party might have already obtained more than 10 or even dozens of faction quests from the Kingdom faction or even the Empire faction. After all, they were lords of all races from a top race. The great race behind them would definitely help it with all their might. As for the other kingdoms and empires, they might even take the initiative to rope them in order to curry favor with the civilizations behind these top lords. Then, they would give them the best faction quests in their faction. This seemed to be Zhou Zhou's guess. However, it was very likely to become a reality under the drive of benefits. Moreover, it had become a reality. Thinking of this, Zhou Zhou frowned slightly. At this moment, no matter how many Lord talents he had, he could not think of what to do. This was the crushing of the civilization and foundation of the race. It was not something a lord of all races who had just arrived in the high continent for less than a month could resist. Why don't I also find the human kingdoms and empires to help me accept a few faction quests with more faction points? Zhou Zhou thought. With his current status in the human race, it was very likely that the higher-ups of the human race would help him. Then, he quickly shook his head and gave up on this idea. This method was useful, but not much. Even the human kingdoms and empires could not compare to the connections and resources of those top-notch race civilizations. In the end, it was indeed possible for him to increase by hundreds of millions or even billions of faction points if he gathered the strength of the entire human race. However, the other party might already have hundreds of billions of lineup points. What should we do? Zhou Zhou muttered to himself. There was only one lord of all races. If he did not want to be eliminated, he had to seize any opportunity to strengthen himself. To be honest, with the mythical tier Lord Talent, the King of Loots, he might have the strength to fight these top lords of all races in the future if he gathered countless Lord Talents. However, it was naturally better to be stronger. What else do I have to break out of this situation? Zhou Zhou muttered to himself. The night passed. Intermediate grade Lord's Paradise. In the quiet room. Zhou Zhou sat cross-legged on a golden futon with his eyes closed. He frowned, as if he was thinking about something. His skin was a little pale, as if he had exhausted a lot of his spirit. After a long time, his body trembled slightly before he opened his bloodshot eyes. I found it, his voice was hoarse. Even though his voice sounded a little tired, it also sounded relaxed. There was one thing recorded in the legendary tier dragon race inheritance of the light sacred dragon. Zhou Zhou muttered to himself, more than 12,600 years ago, a scarlet divine kingdom called Battleaxe led 46 scarlet empires and more than 10,000 crimson kingdoms to launch a large-scale invasion against the local lord forces in the northeast of the high continent. At that time, the local lord forces were in a hurry and were hurriedly forced to counterattack. From the beginning of the war, the total military strength of both sides reached more than 1 trillion. This war even alarmed the Supreme Will. The Supreme Will immediately released an event called Breaking Battleaxe at that time. It was to encourage the lords of all races to resist the invasion of the Scarlet Divine Kingdom together. At that time, countless top-notch race civilizations wanted to be the first in this Broken Battleaxe event and obtain the final reward of the Supreme Will. In the end, those top-notch race civilizations never expected this. In the end, this final reward was obtained by an intermediate-level race civilization called the Illusory Fate race. Zhou Zhou's eyes were dark. At that time, no one knew how this Illusory Fate race did it. However, the legendary tier dragon among the dragons, the Spacetime Divine Dragon, accidentally discovered the secret of the Illusory Fate race's victory through his Master Divine Artifact, the Spacetime Mirror. So the Illusory Fate race has grasped a heaven-defying divination bloodline talent called the Illusionary Heavenly Fate. Through this bloodline talent, it divined the location of the main Scarlet General of the hidden Battleaxe Divine Kingdom. It even found the location of the Divine Kingdom's Great Marshal, who led the Scarlet Army at that time. Then, the other party unconditionally released the positions of all the Scarlet Generals and the Scarlet Marshal. The next day, countless god spirits appeared where they were and assassinated more than 90% of the generals and the most important Grand Marshal of the hidden Battleaxe Divine Kingdom. After this battle, the hidden Battleaxe Divine Kingdom suffered a huge blow. We have to admit that the invasion failed and escaped from the high continent in a sorry state. As a result, the Broken Battleaxe event ended. Even though the Illusory Life race has never assassinated any Scarlet General, they influenced the outcome of this invasion war. Therefore, the other party was recognized by the Supreme Will as the final winner of the Broken Battleaxe event and obtained the final reward of the Supreme Will. Can I replicate the method of the illusory fate race? Zhou Zhou muttered to himself. He pondered for a long time and felt that this was not impossible. However, before that, he had to find the illusory fate race first and use the illusory heavenly fate bloodline talent they controlled to break out of the situation. Chapter 608 Three Goods. 30 million military forces. After the illusory life race obtained the final reward of the Supreme Will back then, they knew that they were already guilty of possessing a treasure and cleverly disappeared from the world. With a top-notch divination bloodline talent like the illusionary heavenly fate, even those top-notch race civilizations could not find their hiding place. However, this did not include the legendary tier dragon race, the Spacetime Divine Dragon. With the Spacetime Mirror Divine Artifact, he easily saw that they were hiding in an independent small world called the Myriad Illusions Small World. However, the Spacetime Divine Dragon was already at the Master God tier level back then. The myriad treasures in the endless heavens, even the treasures rewarded by the Supreme Will, would not move, Only treasures that could break through to the supreme level could attract their interest. Therefore, the Spacetime Divine Dragon only treated this matter as a play. After watching it, it turned around and forgot about it. He would only think of it when he was bored and mentioned this matter to relieve everyone's boredom when he occasionally encountered the Light Sacred Dragon and other legendary tier dragons. Therefore, this matter was also recorded by the Light Sacred Dragon and the other legendary tier dragons in their secret inheritance. However, most of them were also Master God tier existences. Naturally, he was not interested in such a treasure. However, Zhou Zhou wanted to make use of it now. The Myriad Illusions Small World, if the Elven Empire is the initial coordinates, it's about 60 billion kilometers southeast of the Elven Empire. Zhou Zhou recalled the secret inheritance of the legendary tier dragon race and compared it to the current map of the High Continent to find the location of the Myriad Illusions Small World. It happened more than 12,000 years ago after all. Under the vast sea and mulberry fields, many places in the High Continent had undergone a huge change in the terrain, and there were even tectonic shifts. Many kingdoms and even empires had already disappeared throughout the long river of time. If Zhou Zhou searched according to the place the Spacetime Divine Dragon had told the Light Sacred Dragon, there was a high chance that he would not be able to find the Myriad Illusions Small World. Fortunately, even though the High Continent had already been in existence for more than 10,000 years, the ancient empire of the Elven Empire still existed. He could still find the approximate location of the Myriad Illusions Small World with it as the memory point. After finding the direction, Zhou Zhou heaved a sigh of relief. It was different from before. He could not resist even if he wanted to. This is the inheritance of the race civilization. Zhou Zhou sighed inwardly. If not for the fact that this matter was recorded in the legendary tier dragon inheritance of the Light Sacred Dragon, he would probably not be able to resolve the current predicament no matter how many Lord talents he had. From a certain perspective, this usually inconspicuous inheritance was even more valuable than the bloodline talents he had obtained. It was even enough for him to fight against top-notch civilizations like the original Spirit race, the Chaos Gods race, and the Shepherd's God race at certain times. He got up and walked out of the quiet room. Only then did he realize that it was already the next morning. Zhou Zhou shook his head and went to the Lord's shop without thinking too much. As soon as he arrived at the Lord's shop, he saw Zhou Qingmin looking at him bitterly. Zhou Zhou was stunned for a moment before reacting. He seemed to have promised the other party yesterday that he would play games with her tonight. In the end, he forgot about this because he was thinking about how to break out of the situation. I'm sorry. I was delayed yesterday and did not manage to come. Zhou Qingmin looked at Zhou Zhou's pale face and sighed helplessly. Then, he said seriously, Your Majesty, rest well for the next 2 days. Look at you. It's very easy for others to misunderstand. I'll try my best to find excellent goods for your majesty. Your majesty, you still have to prioritize your health. Zhou Zhou was stunned for a moment before smiling. Last night, in order to find a way to break out of this situation and immerse himself in the various bloodline inheritances in his body, he had indeed consumed a lot of energy. However, it was naturally not a big problem with his physique. He cast the chaos healing technique on himself, and his expression instantly returned to normal. He was even much better than usual. Seeing this, Zhou Qingmin did not say anything else. He took out 3 silver boxes from under the counter. Zhou Zhou looked at them one by one. In the first silver box was a diamond-tier intermediate grade skill book called Weapon Repair. In the second box was a talent crystal called Demon Sense. In the third box was a talent crystal called the Sun of Space. Zhou Zhou looked at the specific information of these goods. Skill name, Weapon Repair, Skill quality, Diamond Tier Intermediate Grade, Skill description, you have a large amount of weapon repair knowledge. You can repair most weapons below the Diamond Tier Intermediate Grade. If you lack the corresponding repair materials, you can inject the energy in your body into the weapon, allowing the weapon to have all the weapon effects during the undamaged period for a short period of time. The specific repair effect depends on the level of the weapons and the total amount and quality of energy injected. Talent, Demon Sense, Talent Effect, your sense of smell is very sharp. You can easily sense all kinds of smells contained in the air. You can immediately discover the location of the demons through your sharp sense of smell when they appear around you. Talent, Sun of Space, Talent Effect, your talent in the law of space is like the darling of the law of space. You can easily comprehend spatial skills and even have a small chance of comprehending the law of space series of law skills. The Diamond Tier Intermediate Grade Weapon Repair and the talent, Demon Sense, came from the demon hunter who just arrived in the territory yesterday. As for the talent of the Sun of Space, I don't seem to have any impression of it. Zhou Zhou scratched his head. After his territory's subjects merged with the 4 countries, there were already more than 30 million soldiers. With so many subjects, he naturally could not understand the talent and abilities of every subject. However, he didn't mind and just asked Zhou Qingmin about the prices of these 3 goods. Diamond Tier Intermediate Grade Weapon Repair is worth 50 Diamond Tier Mist Cores. The talent, Demon Sense is worth 20 Legendary Tier Mist Cores while the talent, Sun of Space is worth 500 Legendary Tier Mist Cores. Zhou Qingmin said. Why doesn't the cost include territory tokens? Zhou Zhou was stunned. Does my majesty have it if I asked for it? Zhou Qingmin said expressionlessly. Zhou Zhou smiled as he handed the other party 520 Legendary Tier Mist Cores and 50 Diamond Tier Mist Cores without saying anything else. He then proceeded to learn all of the skills. Right on the heels of that, he went to the Gate of Summoning without stopping and summoned the 4,000 subjects today. Then, he led his troops to clean up the monster ranch and obtained another 4,331,650 soldier-type recruitment books. Zhou Zhou threw these recruitment books into the Gate of Summoning, increasing the number of troops under his command to 20,004,936. Zhou Zhou looked at these soldiers and smiled. Coupled with the more than 9 million troops of the Star Alliance, it was a total of nearly 30 million troops. This military strength should be comparable to some veteran lord factions of the intermediate grade kingdom, right? Zhou Zhou thought to himself. Just as he was feeling happy, he saw Zheng Yuanqi walking over with a solemn expression. Chapter 609 Universal Mobile Phones. Hijacked refugees. Your Majesty. Something very strange happened. Zheng Yuanqi said solemnly. Why? Zhou Zhou was stunned. No new subjects came to seek refuge outside our Blazing Sun Kingdom today. Not a single one. Zheng Yuanqi said seriously. This situation is extremely abnormal. Logically speaking, even if the influence of the optimization of appearance decreases, there should gradually be fewer subjects coming to join our blazing sun kingdom, unlike now, when suddenly no refugees come. I suspect that there's something behind this. Zhou Zhou frowned. Could those refugees have gone to other cities in the King of the Blazing Sun? He thought for a moment and said. After the Blazing Sun Kingdom annexed the former Taiyan Kingdom, the former Aurora Kingdom, the former Titan Kingdom, and the former Nether Bark Kingdom, the higher-ups of the Blazing Sun Kingdom did not give up on many cities in their territory. Instead, they chose to take over and rebuild them as the new residents of all the subjects of the Blazing Sun Kingdom to relieve the population pressure of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. It was not impossible for those new refugees to join other cities in the Blazing Sun Kingdom on the way here instead of choosing to come to the capital. In any case, he could also enjoy the enhancement of beauty and other lord talents by joining other cities in the Blazing Sun Kingdom. That won't happen. Your Majesty, I've already instructed the other territories and cities of the Blazing Sun Kingdom that if they accept the refugees, they must call the capital immediately and gather the most outstanding talents to the capital so that we can gather resources to nurture and train them and develop the potential of these talents as much as possible. I haven't received any calls from the city lords of other regional territories, which means that they definitely haven't received refugees. Zheng Yuanqi said. That's right. The Blazing Sun Kingdom had telephones. This was not strange since both the Black Ghost and Starry Night had communication systems after all. Zhou Zhou only asked Wenye to modify the communication system into a personal civilian model through the research room function of the spaceship. Telephones were easily made. And now, the officials of the Blazing Sun Kingdom already had phones. After building a few more phone manufacturing factories and increasing the production, all subjects of the Blazing Sun Kingdom could completely each have a phone. This was a level that even the military industry lord, who was developing the technology of the cerulean planet with all his might, could not achieve. Did the soldiers in charge of protecting the refugees along the way discover any refugees coming? Zhou Zhou asked again. No, not a single one. However, I've already asked Legion Commander Wu Tu to send soldiers to the surrounding area to check what happened. Zhou Zhou nodded. Then, he called Bai Yun over. Your Majesty. Bai Yun said respectfully. Today, you will lead the troops to the Night Empire to continue the faction quests there. I have something else to do. Zhou Zhou said. Then, he clenched his right hand slightly, and a ball of blood energy gradually appeared, quickly forming a blood bat avatar. Then, he handed this avatar to Bai Yun. I'll leave this blood bat avatar with you. I will observe the situation on your side through this blood bat avatar. After each teleportation array you attack, you can occupy the territory of the lowest level Scarlet Lord. Inform me immediately if anything happens. I'll rush over immediately. Zhou Zhou said. He had the Lord talent of return to the city and could teleport through his territory. It was very convenient to use it to provide support. The current him, as the strongest combatant of the Blazing Sun Kingdom, could personally fight when the time came and with his safety assured. Yes, Your Majesty. Bai Yun said respectfully. At this moment, a soldier flew over from the distant sky. He carried a little girl on his back and flew quickly in Zhou Zhou's direction. Then, he landed on the ground and said respectfully to Zhou Zhou. Your Majesty, Prime Minister. We've already investigated the whereabouts of the refugees who came to our Blazing Sun Kingdom. After we flew out of the Blazing Sun Kingdom, we followed the main road and scouted into the distance. Then we found this little girl. Her name is Ying Ning. When we found her, she was hiding in an empty tree stump. At that time, her clothes were tattered and covered in blood. It was as if she had experienced a fight. We first treated and appeased her. Then, we learned from her that she and a group of relatives and friends originally wanted to join our Blazing Sun Kingdom. They were hijacked by a group of creatures covered in ice blue ice on the way here. Ing Ning's relatives and friends have all been captured, and her mother is a life professional. She tried her best to cover her in order to let her escape. After that, we discovered her. Ing Ning still has some injuries, but we've already done the initial treatment. She's basically fine. She should recover in half a month. The soldier said. Zhou Zhou's gaze landed on the little girl. At this moment, this little girl called Ing Ning had already changed into clean clothes. She looked very clean. However, her face was pale, and her body trembled from time to time. She had been in a state of panic. Obviously, the fear that the monsters had caused her was still affecting her. Zhou Zhou squatted down and reached out to touch her hair. Chaos Healing Technique. Activate. A faint chaotic origin energy was slowly released from his hand and flowed throughout Ing Ning's body, healing all her external and internal injuries. Originally, Ing Ning's face was very pale, but under the treatment of the Chaos Healing Technique, her face quickly regained its rosy color, and her eyes gradually lit up. Moreover, he did not know if it was because the level of the Chaos Healing Technique was too high. The fear in the little girl's eyes lessened by more than half after the healing. Thank you, big brother. Ing Ning said gratefully. It's okay. Big brother, are you the king of the Blazing Sun Kingdom? Even though Ing Ning was young, she was very smart. She had already guessed that this good-looking big brother in front of her was the king of the Blazing Sun Kingdom that their mother had been talking about from everyone's conversation just now. Right. Zhou Zhou nodded gently. Big brother king. Please save my mother. When mother asked me to escape, she kept shouting for me to come to the Blazing Sun Kingdom to look for His Majesty. She said that Your Majesty is a benevolent and powerful human king. Big brother will definitely be able to save Ing Ning's family, right? Ing Ning's eyes were filled with sparkling tears. Zhou Zhou looked at the crying Ing Ning and his expression turned serious. Don't worry. He'll definitely save your relatives and friends. Zhou Zhou said seriously. Even though those subjects had yet to join his Blazing Sun Kingdom, they were already subjects of his country in his heart. As the king of the Blazing Sun Kingdom, abducting his subjects was undoubtedly a provocation to him. He would definitely make those enemies pay 10 times or 100 times the price. Thank you, big brother king. Ing Ning immediately hugged Zhou Zhou's hand and cried loudly. Zhou Zhou did not say anything and only patted Ing Ning's back gently. The others did not say anything. However, their expressions were a little heavy. This child did not cry along the way. She only dared to cry when she saw His Majesty agree to save her family. It could be seen how much pressure she was under. Zhou Zhou pursed his lips when he saw Ing Ning crying. If it was on the cerulean planet or Earth, this child should still be in elementary school and playing happily with other children of the same age, right? The Ice Demon Kingdom, Zhou Zhou muttered to himself. His voice gradually became a little cold. After hearing the soldier's description, he immediately thought of the Ice Demon race in the Ice Demon Kingdom. Only they would have the physical characteristics described by Ing Ning. Chapter 610 Fury 1. Zhou Zhou's expression was cold. Originally, he planned to head to the Myriad Illusions small world and find the illusory fate race. However, after what had happened, Zhou Zhou immediately changed his mind and decided to save the kidnapped refugees first. Firstly, they were all his future subjects. As their future king, he could not abandon them. Secondly, the king of 10,000 kings had only advanced to the second day. There was still time. He was not in a hurry to immediately look for the illusory life race. Thirdly, as an adult, how could he let down a child's promise? Since she was asking for help, he would provide her that immediately. He asked Jing Yuanqi to preside over the matters of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Then, he called Qi Xiantian, Suan, and Wu Tu to board a starry night and fly towards the Ice Demon Kingdom. At the border of the Ice Demon Kingdom. An ice ghost in ice blue armor was chatting with a human in dark red clothes. His Majesty the Ice Ghost King is indeed wise and divine. He actually captured tens of millions of humans. If so many humans become slaves, the Ice Demon Kingdom's national strength will increase by at least 10%, right? When I come to plunder once a day in the future, the Ice Demon Kingdom will be promoted to a high-level kingdom or even an empire. Zheng Chu said fawningly. Ice Demon General, Asa had an arrogant and smug expression. The so-called tens of millions of humans are just a group of ants. Moreover, they're a group of ants with delusions. They actually want to secretly pass through my Ice Demon Kingdom and join the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Don't they know that the Blazing Sun Kingdom is our Ice Demon Kingdom's mortal enemy? He has a death wish. Since they don't know what's good for them, well, capture them all and make them slaves of our Ice Demon Kingdom. Coincidentally, my Ice Demon Kingdom has many deep ice crystal mines that require a large number of slaves to mine. These tens of millions of humans should be able to mine billions of tons of deep ice crystals for our Ice Demon Kingdom. Lord Asa is right. I just wonder, when will the benefits you promised me be fulfilled? Zheng Chu said. His eyes were burning with anticipation. He was originally a human lord of the Cerulean planet. His initial territory was near the Ice Demon Kingdom. Originally, there was a human kingdom nearby, but later on, this human kingdom was quickly destroyed by the Ice Demon Kingdom. Zheng Chu was very afraid when he found out about this. The human kingdom was already a height that he could only dream of. He did not expect the Ice Demon Kingdom to be even stronger. He was very afraid. He was afraid that one day, he would also be destroyed by the Ice Demon Kingdom. After all, even the human kingdom could not survive from the hands of the Ice Demon Kingdom. What was a mere lord of the human race? And so, he tossed and turned, thinking of a way to save himself. After thinking about it, he decided to join him. However, joining the other party required a show of loyalty, so Zheng Chu was vexed again. However, he was not vexed for long this time. This was because 2 days ago, he suddenly realized that a large number of refugees were gathering from all directions and moving in the same direction. Through sending people to ask, Zheng Chu quickly found out that all of them actually wanted to join the Blazing Sun Kingdom and become subjects of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Moreover, most of them were actually female subjects. There was no lack of female rich women and female professionals, or both. Their reasons for going to the Blazing Sun Kingdom were similar. There were mainly 3 reasons. The first reason was to become beautiful and handsome by joining the Blazing Sun Kingdom. The second reason was that they had heard that the Blazing Sun Kingdom was a habitable place for the peace and prosperity. Therefore, they had come all the way here to live in such a paradise that was not affected by war. The third reason was the first 2 reasons and the comprehensive version. When Zheng Chu found out about this, he was extremely jealous and afraid. His kingdom was beside the territory of the Ice Demon Kingdom. It was neither close nor far from the Blazing Sun Kingdom. If the Blazing Sun Kingdom continued to become stronger, his expansion range would sooner or later include his territory. If an unambitious lord knew about this, they might recognize the difference and directly surrender to the Lord of the Blazing Sun. The lords of Cerulean Planet on the World Channel all knew one thing after all. The lords of the Star Alliance under the King of the Blazing Sun were all dozens or even hundreds of times stronger than before he joined the Star Alliance. Becoming a subordinate of the Lord of the Blazing Sun might mean losing his status as a lord and the possibility of continuing to fight for supremacy, but they would definitely live very comfortably. He would definitely not lose the chance to become stronger. The King of the Blazing Sun would definitely not mistreat his subordinates after all. As long as you don't have any thoughts of rebelling against the King of the Blazing Sun, he will definitely nurture you as one of his own. However, Zheng Chu was unwilling. The Lord gave him a taste of power. It was impossible for him to give up his status as a lord of all races and become someone else's subordinate. Therefore, he thought of the Ice Demon Kingdom. Therefore, he told the higher-ups of the Ice Demon Kingdom about the Human Refugee Association passing through the border of the Ice Demon Kingdom and heading to the Blazing Sun Kingdom as a token of his allegiance. He knew everything that happened after that. The Ice Demon Kingdom had sent troops to ambush the refugees on the way to the Blazing Sun Kingdom today. Then, they had easily captured tens of millions of human refugees. The Ice Demon Kingdom was naturally overjoyed. When Jing Chu saw this scene, he hesitated and could not bear to see it. After all, he knew what would happen to these tens of millions of human refugees. However, he quickly cut off this thought. Every man for himself. Please go to hell for my bright future. You want 10,000 sets of military equipment, right? Go back and wait in peace. Ice Demon General, Asa said calmly. Zheng Chu was stunned for a moment before asking carefully, can you give me a precise time? As you know, our Lord of all races is currently experiencing the King of 10,000 Kings event announced by the Supreme Will. My territory is not strong. I really need these 10,000 sets of conventional military equipment now. I said go back and wait. Are you deaf? Ice Demon General, Asa looked at him coldly, his tone filled with an unquestionable tone. Zheng Chu was stunned for a moment before his face turned red and white. Then he'll go back and wait. He forced a smile and nodded. Then, he turned around and walked towards his territory. The further they walked, the redder his face became, the more blue veins appeared on his face. He was already furious to the extreme. Then, he took a deep breath and forcefully calmed the anger in his heart. Don't be angry, don't be angry. I want to get 10,000 sets of conventional military equipment first. When my strength advances by leaps and bounds, I will definitely avenge today's humiliation. He gritted his teeth. You sold tens of millions of human refugees just for 10,000 sets of conventional military equipment. At this moment, a cold and murderous voice sounded. Zheng Chu was shocked and looked up. He saw an extremely handsome man in the Emperor Dragon robe standing not far away and looking at it coldly. Beside him were a sword immortal, an assassin, and a cartographer. All of them emitted the aura of terrifying high-level experts. King of the Blazing Sun. Zheng Chu said in fear. Zhou Zhou's photo had long circulated on the World Channel. That person's appearance was unforgettable to countless people. Zheng Chu was no exception. However, when he saw Zhou Zhou, his heart was filled with fear. Without thinking, he turned around and fled. At this moment, Qi Xiantian, who was beside Zhou Zhou, looked coldly at the fleeing Zheng Chu and extended his right hand. Zheng Chu's body stiffened. He realized that he could not move at all. Then, he flew back to Zhou Zhou and knelt down uncontrollably. Zhou Zhou and the others looked at him coldly. They were all furious. Especially Zhou Zhou. He had never been so angry before. For the sake of his own strength, he sold the lives of tens of millions of his fellow humans. This could be considered the largest traitor on the cerulean planet. Such bad and stupid traitors were rare even in this treacherous high continent. Chapter 611 Fury, 2, Your Majesty, let me end him. Qi Xiantian said coldly. He did not like to kill the weak because he preferred to challenge the strong. However, the person in front of him was an exception. Don't kill me. I know where those humans are imprisoned. Zheng Chu said in fear. Oh. Where are they? Zhou Zhou looked at him calmly. Promise me first that you'll spare my life and I'll tell you this secret. Otherwise, if we're too late, those humans will be transferred away by the Ice Demon Kingdom. Zheng Chu's eyes flickered. Zhou Zhou said nothing. He casually took out the lowest grade black iron tier elementary grade sword from his spatial ring and placed it on Zheng Chu's neck. Under Zheng Chu's disbelieving gaze, he sliced off his opponent's head. Then, he casually used his chaotic origin energy to destroy the corpse, not even leaving a soul behind. Come on. Zhou Zhou said calmly as he casually threw the sword away. Qi Xiantian and the others nodded and left. Ice Demon Kingdom. Bloody Lake Harbor. Zhou Zhou and the other three floated in the air and looked down at the Ice Demon Kingdom's port. A blood-red lake lay quietly on the ground. At least 1 million life forms have died in this bloody lake harbor. Suan said. Cut open this lake. Tens of millions of human refugees are under this lake. But be careful. There's an epic tier guardian in the bloody lake. Don't screw up. Zhou Zhou said. He had high-level telepathy and could easily sense the inner thoughts of living beings weaker than him. Therefore, when Zheng Chu begged him for mercy, he had already given Zhou Zhou the answer he wanted in his heart. That was why he had killed the other party without hesitation. I'll do it. Suan said. He took a step forward. Then, he disappeared into the air. The next second. Accompanied by a sharp whistle. A 700 to 800 meter long headless blood-red worm flew out of the bloody lake and fell on the land beside the blood lake port, twisting its body crazily. A large amount of dark purple blood spewed out of its neck. Originally, there were groups of Ice Demon clansmen transporting goods near the land of Bloody Lake Harbor. In the end, the blood-colored worm struggled before it died, crushed hundreds of Ice Demon clan members to death. The dark purple blood that sprayed out melted nearly 1,000 Ice Demon clan members. The blood god is dead. Enemy attack. Enemy attack. Get the Ghost King core immediately. All the Ice Demon clan members were either crying out in alarm, fear, or anger, making the scene a little noisy. At the same time, above the bloody lake. In a motionless black ship. Ripples appeared in the air, and then Suan walked out. Your Majesty. We found the entrance. Tens of millions of human refugees are inside. But, many refugees are injured, and a small number of refugees have already died. Suan transmitted his voice. Then, he looked around and saw more than 10 Ice Demon clan experts staring at him with their mouths agape. The weakest among them was an epic tier expert. There were even 3 legendary tier Ice Demon race experts. One of them was the Ice Demon General, Asa. Suan's eyes were cold, and he did not look afraid at all. The blood shadow sword in his right hand also let out sword cries. Kill him. You have a death wish, how dare you barge into our territory? Catch him alive. Be careful. Don't let him destroy the Sky Spirit ship. Ice Demon General, Asa and a dozen other Ice Demon race experts finally snapped out of their daze and charged toward Suan with furious expressions. Thick spatial power erupted, forming a spatial passageway with endless suction behind it, directly sucking it into the spatial rift. Suan calmly entered stealth mode and began to kill indiscriminately. Screams sounded. Suan walked out of the Sky Spirit ship with a calm expression. Even his clothes were not stained with any blood. Only the blood shadow sword in his hand was red and shiny. 100,000 Ice Demon soldiers appeared. This was the Ghost King army that the Ice Demon Kingdom had specially stationed here. It was in charge of protecting Bloody Lake Harbor, the official slave trading venue. So many Ice Demon clan members. Just as well. Coincidentally, my blood shadow sword isn't full yet. Suan said softly. His body began to grow rapidly. In just a few seconds, it grew to 15,000 meters tall before stopping. Then, a 1,000-meter-long ferocious red horn grew out of his head. Suan's fair face also turned as red as magma. Then, he grew 2 more faces and 2 pairs of arms. Moreover, on the other arms that were not armed, another 5 blood shadow swords more than 7,000 meters long were formed and held by these 5 hands. Hero skill, Night Rakshasa true body. Witness death. Suan roared at the sky, his voice shaking the heavens and earth. Then, he quickly waved the 6 blood shadow swords. Every swing could take away hundreds of Ghost King army soldiers. The strongest person in the Ghost King army was only a legendary tier elementary grade Ice Demon King. Even though it was stronger than Suan, its combat strength was still far inferior to Suan without the enhancement of the hero slot. Therefore, he could only watch as Suan killed his legionaries on the battlefield. But there was nothing he could do, he could not save his own life. After a long time, the battlefield became deathly silent. Suan, who was in his Night Rakshasa sword god state, looked at the battlefield in front of him with his 6 blood-red Rakshasa blood eyes. After confirming that there were no survivors, the ruthlessness in his eyes gradually faded, and his body returned to normal. He lifted the sky spirit ship with one hand and flew in front of Zhou Zhou. I have not let His Majesty down. Well done. Zhou Zhou nodded. Then, he took the sky spirit ship and entered it with his consciousness. He looked at the scene inside the sky spirit ship. Inside the sky spirit ship, there was a continent of more than 1,000,000 square kilometers. On this main road, more than 10 million human refugees were gathered here. None of them were in a good state. Some of them were injured, some had fainted due to excessive blood loss, some had a fever due to infest, and some were incomplete, but they were still alive. Some of them had already become lifeless corpses. Zhou Zhou took a deep breath and looked in the direction of the Ice Demon King's capital. An extremely intense killing intent flashed across his eyes. However, he did not rush over immediately. The most important thing now was to save her. With a thought, he directly returned to the royal capital of the Blazing Sun City through return to the city. Then, as he carefully released the tens of millions of humans in the empty spirit ship, he immediately gathered all the doctors in the territory to treat these humans. As for the dead refugees, they could no longer be revived with the small resurrection spell. This was because they had been dead for more than an hour. Under such circumstances, resurrection could only be achieved through the Great Resurrection spell. However, how could Zhou Zhou have so many Holy Spirit tier faith divine crystals? I can't resurrect you, then I'll collect some interest for you first. Zhou Zhou muttered. With a thought, he contacted the Blood Bat avatar beside Bai Yun. Chapter 612 Breaking into the Ice Demon Kingdom. In front of an extraordinary tier advanced grade spatial teleportation array. The soldiers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom were currently cleaning up the battlefield. At the place where the Star Alliance masters gathered, a group of people surrounded a female lord and asked her all sorts of questions. The female lord was also quite excited. This is unbelievable. You guys saw it too, right? That's a total of 200,000 fog monsters. In the end, with just one insight defection, 40,000 fog monsters actually submitted to me. I only have 43,000 men. Today's insight defection directly doubled my military strength. The female lord said excitedly. The other Star Alliance masters were also envious. They had all shared the diamond tier insight defection. That 20% insight defection made everyone more eager to try. However, they had just come to complete the faction quests and had not encountered many fog monsters. Therefore, only one lord was lucky enough to use the diamond tier insight defection. It had to be said. What he thought was different from what he saw with his own eyes. The lords were clearly looking forward to the effect of their insight defection even more than when they first learned about the diamond tier insight defection. At this moment, Legion Commander Bai, come here. Did something happen? Are we setting off again? It's so fast today. That's good. I've long wanted to use insight defection. When everyone saw Bai Yun walking towards them, they discussed excitedly. Greetings, Legion Commander Bai. Everyone waited until Bai Yun was in front of them and said politely. Bai Yun nodded. Everyone. His Majesty just sent an urgent order saying that we should immediately return to the royal capital of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. A new war is waiting for us. She then told everyone about the tens of millions of humans being captured and then rescued by Zhou Zhou. When everyone heard this, they were instantly furious. There was no need for Bai Yun to boost their morale at all. Everyone was filled with killing intent, expressing that they wanted to immediately rush back to the Blazing Sun Kingdom and take revenge for the millions of humans. Nong Qinglin, who was one of the lords, nodded in his heart. Back then, His Majesty wanted me to screen these people. Only qualified lords could join the Lord Alliance. Now, it seemed that there was a reason. A moment later in the Blazing Sun Kingdom. When Zhou Zhou saw that Bai Yun and the others had returned, he did not waste any time and directly brought them to the Ice Demon Kingdom. At the border of the Ice Demon Kingdom. Yellow Gold Tier Regional Territory, Black Valley City. In a starry night that was hidden in the interlayer of space. Zhou Zhou and the others were watching the situation outside through a virtual screen floating in front of them. Your Majesty. When are we going to attack this Ice Demon Kingdom? The Green Phoenix Lord could not help but ask. She could not wait to start a war and avenge the tens of millions of human refugees. Zhou Zhou said nothing. He was thinking about something. He thought for a moment and asked everyone to wait for him in the spaceship. Then, he flew out of the starry night and looked at the 50 starry night spaceships in front of him. Among the 50 starry night spaceships, other than him and the Star Alliance's nearly 30 million troops, the rest were carrying professionals in other aspects, as well as some rations and other war supplies. Zhou Zhou's gaze swept around and finally landed on one of the starry night spaceships carrying food. A black ship appeared beside him out of thin air. It was the Sky Spirit ship that Suan had just obtained from the Ice Demon Kingdom's Bloody Lake Harbor. This Sky Spirit ship had already been strictly inspected by the professionals in his territory. After eliminating some special devices, it could now be used safely and normally. Thereafter, he controlled the Sky Spirit ship and placed the Starry Night into the space inside the Sky Spirit ship. Then, he placed the other spaceships, including the spaceships carrying the soldiers, into the Sky Spirit ship. Then can I bring the Sky Spirit ship and directly launch a pounce at the capital of their Ice Demon Kingdom? When the time comes, release the entire army in an instant. The capital of the Ice Demon Kingdom could have fallen into my hands in an instant. Zhou Zhou thought expectantly. Then, he prepared to give it a try. He directly activated the law skill, Shadow Massacre, and hit himself. Then, he activated the mid-tier deity level advanced grade divine artifact, Shadow Cloak, to enhance his invisibility ability. In this state, even if a mid-tier or a high-tier deity came, there was a high chance that they would not be able to see through his invisibility. However, Zhou Zhou frowned slightly. This was because he realized that activating law skills and using the mid-tier deity level Shadow Cloak at the same time consumed too much chaotic energy in his body. At this rate, he reckoned that before he even reached the capital of the Ice Demon King, the chaotic energy in his body would be almost exhausted. I can compress chaotic origin energy to the same quality as mid-tier deity level divine power. But in terms of size, it's still much inferior to a mid-tier deity level. Zhou Zhou thought. Then, he turned off Shadow Massacre's nomological skill and purely used the mid-tier deity level divine artifact, Shadow Cloak. As expected, Zhou Zhou immediately felt that he had depleted a lot of energy. In this state, he could last for about half an hour. So much time was enough for him to do many things. Without any hesitation, he rushed into the sky above Black Valley City and flew towards the Ice Demon King. He didn't choose to enter the interlayer of space through the space meld ability of Starry Night and head to the capital of the Ice Demon King. This was because any kingdom with a little strength would take precautions in this aspect. If he did that, it would be very easy for him to expose the location of the Starry Night and thus his own location. This way, he might as well use the mid-tier deity level divine artifact, Shadow Cloak, to become invisible and minimize the possibility of being exposed. A moment later, he had already flown past the sky above the 16 regional territories of the Ice Demon Kingdom and was constantly advancing towards the Ice Demon King's capital. But at this moment, he suddenly sensed an extremely powerful aura in the distance and was rushing towards him. After a while, he saw an ice demon general in ice blue armor appear not far from Zhou Zhou. It looked coldly in Zhou Zhou's direction and flipped its right hand. A gray compass appeared in its palm. The needle on the black compass slowly spun and pointed straight at Zhou Zhou. The ice demon general looked over. When he realized that there was nothing, his expression changed slightly. Then, he sneered. This concealment technique is not bad. However, if you want to rely on this method to launch a sneak attack on our Ice Demon Kingdom, you're looking down on the foundation that our Ice Demon Kingdom has accumulated over the past 4,000 years. It suddenly opened its mouth, and terrifying ice element energy condensed in its mouth, quickly forming an energy ball that emitted a terrifying energy aura. Then, it suddenly spat out the energy ball in Zhou Zhou's direction. Zhou Zhou, who was invisible, frowned slightly. His gaze fell on the compass in the other party's hand thoughtfully. Seeing that the energy ball was flying towards him, Zhou Zhou revealed himself and casually stretched out his hand, actually wanting to block the energy ball with one hand. The Ice Demon General sneered seeing this. It was a legendary tier elementary grade hero with an epic tier hero fate level slot. This young-looking human actually wanted to take its full strength attack. He really did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. However, in the next second, his eyes immediately widened. Chapter 613 Zenith Heaven Cave Observation Array. This was because the young man had actually caught its energy ball with just one hand, and it seemed to be effortless. The next second, it saw the young man play with the energy ball in his hand for a while before throwing it over. It traveled fast as though it was a shooting star even though this young man threw it lightly, scaring it so much that its hair stood on end. It turned around and wanted to escape. However, the energy ball collided with its body before it could fly far. Rumble. An intense ice blue explosion erupted in the sky. After the light dissipated, the Ice Demon General was already severely injured. Its body trembled as it looked up at Zhou Zhou. Seeing his calm expression, it could not help but laugh bitterly. It didn't escape. It just floated in the air like a condemned prisoner waiting for the final judgment. Let me ask you. How did you find me? Zhou Zhou's voice sounded. The Ice Demon General remained silent. Zhou Zhou raised his eyebrows. Then, he condensed a chaos spear and shot it between its eyebrows. If you don't tell me, you'll die here today. If you say it, not only will I spare your life and make you my subject, but I will also give you unimaginable benefits. He said straightforwardly. Become your subject? Heh. Who do you think you are? The King of the Blazing Sun? The Ice Demon General said. I am the Lord of the Blazing Sun. Zhou Zhou raised his eyebrows. The Ice Demon General was stunned. I'm the king of a country, so I'll naturally keep my word. Zhou Zhou said calmly. Even though his words were from his hometown, the other party understood under the translation of the higher continent's common language. After a moment of silence, it said, the Ice Demon Kingdom is covered in a layer of Grand Luo Cave Observation Array. This Zenith Heaven Cave Observation Array can observe the fate of all sentient creatures in a way that ordinary life forms can't detect. At this point, he took out the compass and injected energy into it. Then, he saw dense red lines appear above the compass. This is the Zenith Heaven Cave Observation Array's Zenith Heaven Compass. And these red lines are the aura of fate you carry. You should have at least 10 million soldiers with you, right? Even though your methods of obscurity are not bad. But it can't hide the aura of fate. There's no way to hide the aura of destiny on the tens of millions of soldiers on you. That's why I found out about you. The Ice Demon General said. Zhou Zhou was speechless. No wonder even a mid-tier deity-level divine artifact like his shadow cloak was discovered. It turned out that the other party had directly observed him through the mysterious level of fate. That's not right. He had the void mask on so that no one could observe his fate through any means. However, the nearly 30 million soldiers he brought did not have the void mask, so he was naturally exposed. Zhou Zhou shook his head. He did not expect the Ice Demon Kingdom to have such observation methods. Suddenly, he thought of something and waved his right hand, opening a world fissure. Then, he placed the Sky Spirit ship into the small world in the world fissure. Even though the small world in his heart had just been established, it could already accommodate a large number of life forms and substances. It might only be temporary, but he could do a lot of things. After putting the Sky Spirit ship into his small world, Zhou Zhou looked at the Zenith Heaven Compass in the Ice Demon General's hand. In the end, he discovered that the compass was still densely packed with red threads that represented the aura of fate. Zhou Zhou frowned. Even the method of putting it into his small world could not hide the aura of fate. It seemed that he could not directly destroy the Ice Demon Kingdom by parachuting in the capital. Then, his brows relaxed. If he didn't parachute in, he wouldn't parachute in. With his current military strength, it was not difficult to kill the Ice Demon Kingdom head-on. At this moment, Zhou Zhou seemed to have sensed something and looked up. In his powerful sixth senses, he could sense a large number of soldiers flying in his direction. The Ice Demon King has already discovered you. It's not too late to run. No hurry, no hurry. Zhou Zhou smiled. What's your name? My name is Elliot. Ice Demon General. Elliot frowned and said, Ice and Fire Dual Blades, Elliot. Elliot, let me ask you, are you willing to join the Blazing Sun Kingdom? You want to take me with you? Elliot was stunned. He thought that Zhou Zhou was going to take him with him. He was a little grateful. Then, he said seriously, Of course I'm willing, Your Majesty. Zhou Zhou nodded. He directly agreed to his application. After joining the Blazing Sun Kingdom, Elliot could be truly trusted under the influence of the peace and prosperity. Your Majesty, let's go. Elliot suggested sincerely for Zhou Zhou. Go. What do you mean? I'm here today to eliminate the future trouble of the Ice Demon Kingdom for my future subjects. Otherwise, I'm afraid my future subjects won't be able to come to our Blazing Sun Kingdom smoothly. Zhou Zhou said calmly. Then, he took out the Sky Spirit ship from the small world and released the nearly 30 million soldiers inside. The sky was instantly covered by the dense figures of the soldiers. When the Ice and Fire Dual Blades saw this scene, Elliot was instantly stunned. Especially when he discovered that there were two gods emitting a terrifying aura inside, its body could not help but tremble. Everyone, listen up. Prepare for war. Zhou Zhou ordered the entire army through the army interface. Yes. Tens of millions of soldiers roared in unison, their voices shaking the heavens and earth. Even the countless soldiers of the Ice Demon Kingdom who were rushing over from afar paused for a moment before returning to their normal speed. The soldiers of the Ice Demon clan rushed over. There were about 5 million of them. Moreover, their average strength was not as strong as Zhou Zhou's. However, there were many top-notch experts among them. In particular, there were at least 100 epic tier experts. Even legendary tier experts numbered 6 to 7. At this moment, the leader of the Ice Demon clan, who was wearing a luxurious ice blue robe and an ice jade crown, took a step forward and said cautiously, May I ask which human faction you are from? I wonder when did my Ice Demon Kingdom provoke you to bring so many soldiers here? His voice loomed. You just robbed tens of millions of my refugees but now you're acting like you don't know us. As expected of the Ice Demon King of the Ice Demon Kingdom, Your Majesty Kiro. Your skin is thicker than the average ice demon. Zhou Zhou looked at it and asked mockingly. He had seen the basic information of this ice demon king on the map that Wu Tu had given him, so he could tell at a glance. The ice demon king chuckled. That's me. What else do you have to say? Zhou Zhou asked calmly. The ice demon king, Kiro, didn't even bother to reply. Instead, he ordered his ice demon king army to charge at Zhou Zhou's army. Zhou Zhou was naturally not afraid at all. He ordered the army to charge forward and not leave a single one alive. At the same time, he also raised his right hand and aimed his palm at the 10 million soldiers of the Ice Demon Kingdom. Extraordinary Tier Lord Talent, Insight Defection, activate. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.